And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
Attention, roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern time. And of course, the finest Unfiltered. We got a great topic for you today. I think some people are going to love the topic. Some people are going to hate us for speaking about it, but I think it's true. It needs to be spoken about. And how has progressive ideology infected NYPD leadership? And we'll show you examples and we'll give you evidence of it because it's time we actually have the real discussion. I think everyone's having this discussion in the locker room. They're just not saying it out loud. But at the Finest Unfiltered, we actually say it out loud. And we're going to show you and we're going to provide the evidence and give you examples of different leaders or managers at the NYPD who've exemplified progressive ideology, who have become completely woke. And I think we showed you time and time again anyway in different episodes, but it's time we actually show you today. So, with that being said, good morning, everybody. Let's jump into it. It's Monday morning. Hope everyone had an awesome weekend. It's August already. The summer is really heating up, so let's get into it. Marlon, John, good morning. John, what are your thoughts, brother?
Yeah, what's up, everybody? Happy Monday. Thank God it's Monday. Here we go. And again, another week of the Finest Unfiltered. So, yeah, we're going to talk about how progressive ideology has infected NYPD. So, I think we had a debate with, I think myself and Eric were on one side of the debate. Marlon was on the other, and he was saying that, black chiefs have all adopted this woke progressive culture. And I was kind of like, I don't think so. There's so many active cops. And then I really thought about it. And I was like, you know what? I don't know one that's not a progressive, like on the job and off the job. I don't know one that hasn't deep throated. And so I just want to say that when I was arguing with Marlon with that, some of my points I still agree with that I said, because I think that all of these guys are chameleons. I think whoever's in charge, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, the people that rise to the top in police and policing today in law enforcement in Democrat controlled cities, they're spineless, they're chameleons, they have no integrity, they have no character, they have no morals. So they will literally change overnight. We saw that with Terrence Monahan. We went from how many touches we have to we know that policing minor crimes doesn't work, like literally overnight. And so I think that when those guys will ultimately always flip. But I do think specifically when you look at today, when you look at the NYPD as a whole today, yes, the white guys are deep-throating progressives, but I think Marlon's 100% right. They're woke in the streets, MAGA in the sheets. And then when you look at the black guys, they're woke in the streets and woke in the sheets. And so I just want to say that I think that I was totally wrong about that. I really thought about it hard over the weekend, and I think Marlon was dead on with that. We're not going to single out black, white. We're going to give you examples of all of that. But I think what Marlon said was absolutely accurate. And I said to him at one point, what you're trying to tell me, like, oh, you think all the black chiefs are dumb? And so I don't think that he was alluding to that, and I don't think he said that, and I'm not taking words out of his mouth. Who's touching the buttons? I don't think that he's alluding to all that. I don't think that he was saying that. But I'm saying I think that politically, I think currently the last round of black chiefs that were in the NYPD, the current round of black chiefs in the NYPD are politically illiterate, do not know what's good for the profession, haven't been good for the profession, haven't been good for the NYPD, haven't been good for their workers. And I think it's because they're so aligned with the progressive ideology. And same's true for the white chiefs. They suck too, because they don't care. They're spineless. They're chameleons. So I just want to say that I think I was totally wrong about all that.
Yeah, morning, guys. Sorry about that. That was me, John. My screen froze up for a second, and I clicked on screen.
Yeah, I looked down for a second. I looked up. Next thing you know, it's like, oh, John's by himself.
Yeah, I'm like, well, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. My screen glitched out for a second. I clicked on it, but I happened to click.
I thought Marlon got mad about that and took us off the screen.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. A little technical difficulties. Where I don't know if it's because of the weather outside today, but we're kind of raining cats and dogs right now outside in New York, and yeah, so hopefully I don't have more issues. But anyway, I think this may have to be multi-part episodes, because I realized that if these guys go on podcasts or on radio shows and they talk. And if you listen to them long enough, you kind of understand where their thought process is, what their mentality is. And like right now, I'm really going to dig into all these, overall, I'm going to start looking more into all of these guys who had a role in the scamdemic in the NYPD, just to see if I could kind of form a thesis on like what they were thinking, and where their mindset was at to just let something like that happen to the entire job. So I think this is probably going to be a multi-part episode because there's been a lot of executives who've passed through the NYPD in the last couple of years, and eventually we'll we still have to dig into like some of the other guys now, even though we have I think in a lot of ways we have a little bit more disciplined NYPD. A lot of these chiefs, they're I haven't seen too many podcasts with the people that are there now on it. Whereas during the Adams administration, these guys would go on the radio all the time or podcasts or whatnot and run their mouth. But anyway, I mean, don't get it twisted, guys. The problem is it's on both sides. Okay. The problem is that these guys are all weak and they don't care about the institution at all. I know they may tell you nice things, they may make it sound nice, they may make it sound professional, but at the end of the day, they go and do dumb things and dumb things which contradict the things that they just said. So morning, Eric.
Good morning, brother. So I think that it's important. I said we're going to provide some evidence. We're going to talk about information that actually shows the wokeism that infected the NYPD and how the leadership of the NYPD gobbled it up. Now, I think that what's important, I think that when you're in a position of leadership, especially when it comes to law enforcement profession, your job is not to pander to the politicians, but rather protect the sanctity of that institution. That is what we expect from our leadership. That's when the job was good. When you had Chief Esposito, who had a backbone, who protected the sanctity of that institution in comparison to what we have right now. May he rest in peace. The leadership or the appointed managers of the NYPD have been so infected because they allowed it to infect them because it's self-serving and it also paves the way for their offspring. So to play this game of wokeism. Now, Marlon, I think you were spot on. I think we were all spot on in our perspectives of wokeism and NYPD leadership. But I do think that they're all playing pretend. I think damn well that black leadership of the NYPD knows damn well they're playing pretend. And I think the same thing for upper management when they're white. I think they all are playing the same game. It's their stars on their shoulder and their collar that's more important than anything. I think that every one of them, whether they're black, Hispanic, or white, they go home, they lay down at night, and they have to kiss the mouths of their wives and children with the mouth that they've been lying at work the entire day and pretending to be woke because they know damn well that ideology they would not bring home and want for their family. And you know how it's true? Because I don't see any of the NYPD leadership that has support this wokeism and ideology about communities protecting themselves. Where do they live? Most of the upper management NYPD leadership live in comfortable suburban neighborhoods, predominantly white, conservative neighborhoods, but yet they practice ideology that's just completely woke. So let's go back here. I want to pull this up right now. Here is a memo, a diversity memo that came from former Mayor de Blasio. And this was in March of 2021. It was called the Executive Order number 67, Diversifying NYPD Senior Leadership. And what was interesting about it, there's a lot of hoopla in here to read, but here's the important part. And I think John and I were just talking about this. Former Mayor Bill de Blasio was very careful on the wording here. And it says the Department of Citywide Administrative Services shall, within 5 business days of this order, promulgate a personnel services bulletin requiring that before the New York City Police Department makes any discretionary designation to fill any senior position, the NYPD must conduct a meaningful interview of at least one qualified applicant.
Did he just freeze?
Yeah, I think he did.
Yeah, he froze. Yeah, he must. He ain't getting no rain in Arizona. I'll tell you that. Oh, Vegas.
At the NYPD.
You totally froze, dude.
I got cut off.
You totally froze. You said the
I froze.
NYPD.
Anyway,
You said the NYPD must get one qualified, and then you were stuck like that.
Stalin got me. All right, so
Yeah.
the NYPD must have at least one qualified applicant for each open position who is of a race that is underrepresented in a senior position at the NYPD. So I think former Mayor Bill de Blasio was very careful and said we require one interview. It didn't say that the person would have to be promoted. However, we know damn well that the upper management gobbled that up and accepted that not only as an invitation, but as an order, and they pandered to that. Instead of holding down the sanctity of that institution and saying, you know what, if that's what you want, we will do it. No one said this publicly. We will make sure that we will interview all races, all ethnicities, to make sure that we have the most diverse applicants in the NYPD, which we already had to do. But we will ensure we will choose the most qualified candidate. And whoever that shall be, that organically the department will still be diverse. And not one person stood up, and instead that subliminal message of interview became promotion. So this, to me, was just one of the infections, just sanctifying and clarifying the ideology that the upper management took in. So these memos are very easy subliminal messages that infected the NYPD leadership, the management. Not one person, to my knowledge, not one person in the NYPD ever stood up against this memo and said, hey, we'll take it as just food for thought, but we will still make sure we have the most qualified candidate. And I remember on a actually, myself and John, we did a podcast maybe 3-4 years ago about the diversity of the NYPD. And ultimately, we actually showed you the numbers that the least amount of promotees were Asian. And in fact, it took Asian men about 6 to 7 years to get promoted in a senior position in comparison to their counterparts. And so that memo was completely not acknowledged. And what, in fact, the subliminal message for that meant is black and brown, and especially black. Anyone disagrees? Take a look at that memo and see what's going on.
Yeah, well, first of all, there was a lot of stuff. I mean, when de Blasio came in, that just it was unbelievable. I don't know if anybody remembers, but his wife's security detail, it was like anybody but a white guy. Anybody but a white guy in the NYPD. And I'm like, wow, imagine if I said anyone but a black guy. Imagine if I was like, yeah, I'm going to pick people for my wife's security detail, but anybody but a black guy. Anybody but a Hispanic guy. Racist, right? Right? White supremacy sound like a little bit? Sound like it? Yeah, right? But it was never the other way around because, the theme that I hear amongst black executives and black officers is this. It's our turn now. When you guys were up there, you guys were all corrupt. You guys were all taking care of your friends. So shut up about what we're doing because we're doing it now and you have no right to criticize us. And I think that if you look at the Finest Unfiltered as a whole, is we don't hold any punches. We don't care if you're black, if you're Catholic, if you're Muslim, if you're Jewish, if you're white, if you're Hispanic, if you're Chinese. We don't hold any punches. We just talk about it. And what's significantly different about us is we don't gatekeep. We'll give you our platform. We said something you don't like, come on here and challenge us. I think that's the thing. And we're all for opposing thoughts because we don't think that we're right about everything. Look, I was dead sure about something on Friday, and then I thought about it like literally afterwards, and I was like, I don't think I was right about that. Our minds could be changed. We're not like rigid, we're not like these rigid individuals that can't see past things. So I think when you look at that like the de Blasio administration brought in a lot of unnecessary racism into the police department and started to push black supremacy. And I think when I look at black executives now, the issue that I have is they're continuing to push black supremacy. and they don't even know they're doing it, but they're doing it. And I'm like, if I just reverse the things that you said you were going to do, like, look, you don't want to diversify leadership. You don't want it to be equitable for white people. You just want to push black and brown people ahead, particularly black people. Because if you look at that chart of who gets promoted, when you look at Hispanic women, they're not so high up on the list. It's white guys, Hispanic women. It's Asians, white guys, Hispanic women. Those are the longest amount of time to get promoted in the NYPD. That's been holding true over a decade already. So, it's not really about diversity. It's about overstepping people. And when I look at New York City's racial equity plan, when the NYPD says they want equity, they don't really want equity. They want less white people. They want less men. They want less white men. I mean, that is the actual goal of the racial equity plan, because when you see the huge inequities when it comes to representation in white groups, when you look at in the violence intervention, CMIS programs, when you look at that, how many white violence interventions do we have across the city? Anybody know? Like I said, I put a FOIA request in. I expect I will be getting pushback from the mayor's office to not give me that data, but I probably think I already know the answer to that. It's none, and and not only just white people. I want to look at there's a lot of different ethnicities throughout New York City. Why is only one being represented? And so when I look at that, it's not about equity, right? Because you don't really care about racial equity there. When I look at the Department of Corrections, you obviously don't care about racial equity because it's dominated by black people, and you're not looking to diversify the Department of Corrections. You're okay with it. So only equity when whites are overrepresented or perfectly represented, or only equity when supposedly minority groups, because again, you're the majority, so you're not actually the minority anymore. We only care about equity when you supposed minority groups are underrepresented. So, and that's my thing. It's just like racism after racism. If you read the original, and I have it somewhere, I can't pull it up now, but I saved it. The original founding of the NYPD's Department of Equity and Inclusion. I mean, I was like, this is unbelievable. This is literally saying, it goes way further than this memo where it says and they changed it since. It doesn't say it anymore, but they were there to diversify the leadership. They were there to ensure that every bureau, every department, every single thing in the NYPD was made less white. Like if you just read it like that, and again, because it's very simple. If I literally just turn around the things that black people are celebrating in the NYPD, that black chiefs are celebrating, that even white chiefs are celebrating, if I turn those statements around and I focus it towards white people, if I have White Business Month, if I have, White History Month, if I do any of that stuff, what am I? I'm a racist. I'm white supremacist. I can't be proud of I'm a white supremacist. I'm this. And I think, that on its face alone, that anybody is willing to accept discrimination in the name of diversity or equity tells me everything I need to know about the intelligence levels of white chiefs, black chiefs, Hispanic chiefs, and everybody else. The people that rise to the top aren't smart. They may be educated, and if they are smart and they are educated and they do have an intelligence level, they have no spine to say exactly what needs to be said. Right now, New York City's woke. New York City's far left, progressive, Marxist city. So right now, the leadership of the NYPD is far left, woke, Marxist, progressive ideology, and they all swallow it hook, line, and sinker, regardless of their ethnicity or their gender, because if they don't, they are no longer going to be part of that organization.
Yeah. Great points. If you're not, you'd never make it that far up, If you can find me a black chief who's conservative, you've got a unicorn there. and I'd like you to let me know, because then I'm gonna play the lotto that night. Okay.
Well,
You
Mom,
ain't
that's
gonna
what
find
I'm.
me.
Mom, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think at
Mhm.
home they are. That's my argument.
Hmm?
My argument is I think at home they are. At home with their family.
I disagree, Eric. I don't think they are. I think the problem is, once you, first of all, they're not gonna let one who is even rise to that level. But the other issue is that, with 70% of the black community, in like, you know having grown up without fathers, I think it's 70%. I forgot the exact number. The number's high, right? And we know the plight of a lot of black communities in America. It's bad, right? The problem is that a lot of these guys grow up in that environment, and I've said it before that progressivism from the last couple decades has infected the American black community, and they've internalized it and made victimhood their identity. That's why, I was watching an interview with Juanita Holmes yesterday, and it struck me that when they interview these guys, certain things always come up. First of all, it always becomes, the topic always dovetails into being about them being the first. Okay, the first. It's always about them being a first. It's like, am I nothing more than my color? You know. Second, the issue also always the interview always dovetails into specifically them growing up in like a black community. You know, instead of maybe their individual experiences. And the problem is, and those interviewers are liberals. The problem is that this victimhood has interpierced the black community, and it's form an identity, and a lot of it's from a collectivist identity, right? And a lot of them view, this is why we go back to that statement, it's our turn. And they'll say things like, like John referenced about, in the past we were discriminated, so it's our turn now, and you guys are only complaining because now it's our turn. Okay. And that's the problem. That's one of the problems. And what I said on Friday, specifically, that the white chiefs, now don't get me wrong, there could be one or two liberals, but I think the vast majority of them do it for survival and opportunism, whereas the black chiefs believe it to their core. Because they've internalized that racism, right? Internalized. And you'll see when we show you a video with Rodney, right?
Marlon, I love you, brother, but I got to push back. I don't agree. And listen, honestly, I don't know if you're right, and I don't know if I'm right, because none of them tell the truth. I mean, I think they're all living a lie. But
That is true.
I'm going by I'm going by what I see. And so when I think about the black chiefs, at least in my experience, and up till present day in retirement, I think about where do they live. And most of them live in suburban neighborhoods in Long Island or upstate, where they're predominantly in neighborhoods that are conservative white people. They have a house with a picket fence. They have a family with conservative values. Their kids are going to conservative type schools, or not conservative type schools, but they go into schools that are predominantly white. I don't see them going to all black schools, which they could afford it. Mm-hmm. So to me, I think honestly, both of us don't know, because none of us will ever get a real answer from Rodney Harris and them. But I'm going by the things that they say, and things and the way that they live. And I think that the way that they move and what they say is far different from the way they live. Why doesn't any of these chiefs live in Bed-Stuy? Or why don't any of these black chiefs live in Brownsville? Or why don't any of them live in the South Bronx? If they really believe in this ideology and they really believe in this racism, then why don't they live in those neighborhoods? Why aren't they raising their kids in those same neighborhoods? So I don't think any one of us are right. And I think maybe some of them have been so infected that they actually brainwash themselves to believe this. Because from my experience, the black cops that I worked with, I never worked with any black cops that were racist. I'm sure there are, but I never worked with any black cops that were racist. We were all blue. But somewhere, once people start to move up that chain, things change once they go into that executive leadership and get infected by that woke ideology. In my opinion, if the leadership and the upper management of the NYPD held the sanctity and they actually cared about the NYPD and want to make sure the most qualified candidates get in those senior positions, then that memo by former Mayor Bill de Blasio, they would have looked at that memo and threw it right in the garbage. But instead, that memo, in my opinion, became gospel. You could replace the word interview with promote. Now, former Mayor Bill de Blasio was very careful in putting it as interview, but I think the weak leadership of the NYPD took it as, we got to promote. We got to promote. Ultimately, you could intercept numerous words in that memo and make it extremely discriminatory against whites, which in fact I do believe it was. Now I'm all for diversity. I encourage diversity, but the diversity that I encourage is diversity of qualifications. What are the academics of the various senior positions? What are their experiences in the police department? What have they done? And these are the things that are not often discussed. And there's no metric or measure. So that's why I like to bring up Terrell Anderson again. So Terrell Anderson was promoted nearly approximately a year from the time of a controversial oversight and incident where he was in charge of the candidate assessment division, and he had to sign off on unqualified and disqualified candidates that ultimately went to the police academy and became cops and now hold a badge and a gun, are actually engaged in everyday active police work, including making arrests, writing summonses. They're part of the law enforcement profession. Now, do I hold him ultimately responsible? No. However, it did pass through his hands, and I believe it's small unit leadership breakdown. So here's the question. What is the metric and measure? Because for Terrell Anderson, it's been far different. Now, I've seen white police officers and even white lieutenants, including myself, that have been under investigation for CCRB or other things by the Internal Affairs. And sometimes those investigations take as long as 36 months before charges play out, before there's an outcome, before there's a result, before there's a full investigation, before someone can move on with their career. And yet Terrell Anderson, in approximately 1 year, a very controversial oversight, which made the papers, which could change the entire nomenclature of the job, which could affect the entire city. In 1 year, approximately 1 year, Terrell Anderson was promoted to chief. And there's not that many people on the job that actually outrank him. So if anyone thinks that that memo is not part of Terrell Anderson's promotion, they're lying. Because in fact, I think there's a correlation and there's a nexus there also. Because ultimately, what they mean by diversity is not diversity of qualifications. Replace the word diversity with black. They want to put black at the top. And I do believe that the black chiefs that have made it to the top, I like to believe that they don't believe that that's acceptable, that they pretend, as I said before, they use that mouth at work, pretend, lie, and say different things. And when they go home and lay down at night, I don't believe they actually believe those things. I don't. Now, some of them I don't think are educated, and some of them I don't think they're knowledgeable. But we look at someone like Rodney Harrison. I think Rodney Harrison's intelligent. He's highly aware of what he's saying. And I know damn well that's why I often say he's not a good guy, he's a nice guy. Because I know damn well he doesn't raise his family with that ideology. I don't think he believes it. I think he plays pretend. And that's my opinion. I mean, I don't know who's right or who's wrong here. And ultimately, I don't think it matters. The bottom line is whether they're pretending or not, that's the way that they're carrying themselves. And ultimately, it affects the entire NYPD and it affects the residents of New York City. It's just a complete disaster. The law enforcement profession of the NYPD has been eradicated. And it's not just that one memo, but that's just one example. That's a needle in the haystack just to show you how the NYPD management has been infected and injected, and they've gobbled up those policies and actually exemplify them far more than former Mayor Bill de Blasio ever expected, or at least any one of us expected. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, KB says, when you see a chief, do you see a black chief or do you just see a chief? Again, I see a chameleon. There's zero difference in character, but I do, again, I'm going to go back on what I said. I totally agree with Marlon. I think that I look at all of these guys and they're all woke. I mean, let Corey Pegues, woke as hell. Who's the other guy? Winston Faison, woke. Jeffrey Madry, woke. Rodney Harrison, woke. Like all of these guys, I think that they really have bit. I think they when Marlon said that. I was like, I don't think so, because you got active guys, and I don't think that active guys believe this shit. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm thinking back at all my comments that I get. I'm thinking about all the comments, and I'm like, I don't know one. I don't know one who's not a progressive, who doesn't love all the stuff, who's not a diehard Democrat. I'll never vote Republican. Who's not cheering on the new CCRB pick that I'm sure we'll get into later on. I mean, like, and I'm like, there's two things there. One, I think that they're all progressives. Two, I think that they don't give a shit really about anything other than black people getting ahead too. At the same point, they consistently celebrate. They'll celebrate it regardless. And Winston Faison, he had an issue with us commenting on the promotion of Terrell Anderson, saying, "Well, we weren't executives. We weren't privy to certain information. We don't know things, so we can't comment on it." And I just want to say to Winston, like, I think that honestly, I think that in the last crop of black chiefs and black inspectors, you included, I think that you guys were handed the keys to the kingdom undeservingly, because I don't think you guys spent the time in executive ranks that other people's did. I'm saying this from somebody who played the game. Maybe I wasn't a coach and you guys were coaches, but I played the game. So I'm just letting you know, I was a cop for a long time, I was a supervisor for a long time. Maybe I wasn't an executive because of a vaccine mandate. That's okay. It's a fair criticism. I wasn't an executive. I didn't see the keys to the kingdom. But from the outside looking in, from my uninformed opinion, I would say that you guys were handed the keys to the kingdom undeservingly. You were pushed through the ranks. You were basically handed deputy inspector, handed chief. You did not put the time in that white chiefs did, or Hispanic chiefs, or Asian, or anybody else. You guys flew through the ranks. You embarrassed yourselves. You embarrassed the NYPD. You embarrassed law enforcement as a whole, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm saying, well, I played basketball for a very long time. I was never a coach. But I could watch a basketball game and give a pretty good damn analysis and say when I think a coach sucks. And I think you guys sucked big time. Like horrible. Like what happened under the Adams administration, I think was horrendous. Should never happen, and I'll never excuse that. Ever. Like, I think it was horrible. But then when we talk about Terrell Anderson, I just want to sum it up real quick, because I think people are mistaken about what I'm saying. One, I do think, again, if Terrell Anderson wasn't black, not one of you would say a damn thing. You wouldn't celebrate him. You'd probably be saying what we were saying. Two, we said Terrell Anderson is not the end all be all. He did not start hiring people that were unqualified, hiring people with psych issues, and hiring people with criminality. It's been going on for 10 years. It's been over 10 years. It started with under Mayor Bill de Blasio. There were white chiefs doing and white inspectors doing exactly what Terrell Anderson was doing. So that's one. We said it. We were the first people to say it. We said that it looks like a hit job. We're very aware that Terrell Anderson was the 7-3 precinct CO at the time that Jeffrey Madry voided the arrest of his friend. And we're very aware that that whole Adams crime team, that faction of the Adams crime team, was not very happy with Terrell Anderson about how he handled that situation in the aftermath. So we're very well aware of that. So could that have been a hit job from people? Yeah, absolutely. From the people that were in charge of the NYPD? Absolutely. It looked like one to me, because it stopped with him. Because again, Terrell Anderson wasn't the final sign off to hire these people. Who was the final sign off? Chief of Patrol was. Was the chief of patrol ever GO'd about it? Was he ever brought up on charges about it? Was he ever questioned about it? I don't know. I didn't see the IB case, but I'll guarantee, just knowing what happened with mine and Eric's case, that in fact he wasn't. So it was 100% a hit job. With that being said, he ain't no fucking whistleblower. He is no whistleblower whatsoever. A whistleblower is somebody that they step into a role and they see something going on that's wrong, right? They see something going on. They're like, you know what? These psychiatrists aren't actually psychiatrists, and they're failing people, that for arbitrary and capricious reasons. That's a whistleblower. A guy that gets caught in corruption and then points fingers, That's what's known as a stool pigeon, a stoolie, a rat, a cooperating witness for a legal term. That is not somebody that is a whistleblower. So attributing Terrell Anderson to being a whistleblower is an absolute joke. It's the same maneuver that I see. You got one podcaster out here. He says he's Italian. I think he's a tall Cuban guy with a ponytail. I don't know what he is. I don't care. But I know what he does. I know that I know that white cops, Hispanic cops, Asian cops, Muslim cops, I know that they are under assault. Anything they do by that one individual. That podcast will say how they're horrible, how they're engaged in extrajudicial punishment. They're all this. And then that same podcast, when the person's accused of corruption, blatant corruption, whether it be Terrell Anderson or anybody else, and they happen to be a member of the Guardians, I know that podcast now paints these people as victims, as whistleblowers. There's a race baiting attorney that's attached to that podcast who's the executive producer, owner, and obviously, he oversees the entire operation. Should be under his name probably. I know that he continues to push the whistleblower thing, and then they sue. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, it's a joke. It's a joke that this guy got promoted. He was involved in the grift. He was involved in the corruption. The system turned on him, and then he pointed fingers. Well, it wasn't just me. It wasn't just me. It was everyone else. And yeah, 100%, it was everybody else. But what did you do to deserve that promotion, Chief? What did you do? Honestly, what'd you do? What happened in the 7-3? And then, and I look at it and I'm like, yeah, I was like, you know what? Marlon's 100% right. All these guys are woke as shit. They are all aligned with the progressive ideology. Now, I look, will I say that I've never really encountered a true racist in my entire life, but I've encountered a lot of biased motherfuckers, like a lot of them. And I'll say right now, the most biased people that I've encountered are black cops. They have a chip on their shoulder like I never seen in my life. They think they're the only people that got stopped by the police. They think they're the only people that grew up in poverty. They think the world is against them. And, and I got the red carpet rolled out for me. When honestly, when I look at it the other way, I'm like, I think you got the red carpet rolled out for you. And I didn't. My only privilege in life growing up is that I have a mother and father who loved me and were there. That was it. They didn't have any money. They weren't well educated. They didn't come from riches. They didn't come from family. They had no privilege. Prior to my sister graduating high school, prior to my sister graduating college, there was no one in my family who made it past high school. My mother was considered highly educated because she graduated high school. So when we talk about all of the problems in the black community, and they're there, and I'll never deny that they're not there, they stem from poverty. You throw a white family in there, a Hispanic family, it's crimes of socioeconomic. It's socioeconomic issues that do not just affect the black community. They affect the white community. They affect Hispanic community. They expect the Jewish community. Whoever the hell lives in poverty faces all of these same issues throughout New York City. All of them.
Yeah. And those problems affect the civility and cohesion of America. Because if you want to destroy America from within, that's how you go about it. You have you have an entire groups of people who walk around with chips on their shoulder and feel that the system is designed to oppress them, and there's racism at every corner. That's how you destroy America. And you're seeing in a lot of ways, you're seeing the results of it now with all these gangs of feral youth who, a lot of times, who do those gangs of feral youth attack? Well, they attack people who don't look like they're from the neighborhood, So, so this is I believe this was a Pew Research poll from 2023, which showed voting patterns, right? And if you look in the bottom left, you'll see that black voters tend to vote heavily Democrat, right? 83%. I think it's actually down a little bit more now, but I'd have to show you that next time. But the point in me bringing this up is that how much progressivism and liberalism and rather neoliberalism has infected the American Black community, right? To the point where a lot of the BS has been internalized. Okay. And again, going back to the victimhood. And um this is why again you get so many guys who believe all this stuff that it's against me and come on, you know. But I also want to point out one thing, to John's comment about the cartel that we had running this administration the last couple of years. Well, I saw this podcast over the weekend too, and I had long suspected it, right? I had long suspected it. But in this one, Rodney clearly tells you that his mentor was Philip Banks. So once again, I'm going to point out how that cartel they're all connected. It's all the Phil Banks it's really the Phil Banks cartel that Eric Adams just happened to be a part of, because Eric Adams has also told us when he first got on the job, he was mentored by Phil Banks' father. Okay. So I think Phil Banks is the connecting piece behind a lot of the inept chiefs that were pushed up quickly up the ladder. And as you know, we saw the last couple of years, we saw the results the last couple of years. Okay, there are plenty, and by the way, there were plenty of other black chiefs who were much more competent than these guys. Okay, but those black chiefs never made it that far up. Right? They never made it. They never made it to the heights of people like Rodney or Juanita or what's his name, Tariq. Okay.
Well, is that a video?
Yeah. You want me to play it?
Yeah, can you play it?
Yeah, play that video, brother.
People already. Who are? This is a question I started asking about a year ago to people. I mean, you're obviously at the highest levels of law enforcement, right? It's always curious to me what people say when I ask who their mentors have been. So, who have been some of your mentors?
If I, it's funny. That's another. You're 2 for 2. That's another very good question. Which I never really had a mentor in when it came to policing. But if there's somebody that I will say that I kind of mirrored my supervisory skills around, it would be Phil Banks.
Okay.
Phil Banks was a guy that made sure that customer service for people that came into precinct was a priority. And and I don't know if anybody here has ever walked into a precinct and you've had to stand around for 20 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes just to get an accident report. Right. He would rip your head off if somebody was not addressed or engaged right away as soon as he walked in the precinct. And that there is the customer service, what we need to do to build and strengthen.
Yeah, he goes on about customer service, blah, blah. But that's not the first time he's talked about Phil Banks. He's talked about Phil Banks again on his show. Okay. Phil Banks is the connector between all these guys, the whole Brooklyn North clique with Madry and all these guys. Phil Banks was at the head of it. And by the way, we all know Phil Banks had a undefined but clearly substantial role in the Eric Adams administration. So that's how you saw these guys were able to quickly move up the ranks, even though a lot of them clearly seemed like they were inadequate or unprepared for that.
That was really interesting, though. He said, I don't have a police mentor, but a guy that is a mentor that I mirror is Phil Banks. That was pretty interesting. Like saying he's not really a cop; he's a politician. He's a power broker.
Well, I think
he looks at him more like a power broker, like a leader. He doesn't look at him like a cop. That was very interesting what he just said. Well, I think you're right. But there are different factions. That's the whole thing. There are different factions in that cartel. There are warring factions.
Well, I think he was just trying to put a little distance between him and Banks, because he said multiple times before that Phil Banks has played an influence on his career. I think he was just trying to. He knows that people like us are watching him now, because that interview was 2 months ago. So it was after prior interviews, and he knows we are watching. So I think it's him merely putting a distance
He,
between.
he forgot to mention all the great qualities about Philip Banks, including the fact that he's a co-conspirator. He forgot to include that. Now I'm going to say this, and I really don't care who's watching because I received a lot of opposition when I talk about Rodney Harrison. Apparently, he was loved by many people, even people that we know. I think Rodney's full of shit. I really do. He talks so nice. It's so artificial. He's full of shit. I can see right through him. Anyone here who is an active or retired cop or just someone that observes behavior, his behavior is so full of shit. He's so careful and so calculated in what he says, which is why I don't believe that he believes a word that he says. He's full of shit. And so I'll go back to what I said. I don't care if people don't like it. He is, in my opinion, he's not a good guy. He's a nice guy. He's congenial. He's intelligent. He speaks well. He's articulate. He doesn't challenge things because it paves the way for his self-promotion. It's very fitting. It fits his pathway in life. It fits his after retirement life. A real good guy would push back. I've never heard Ronnie push back on anything. In fact, what he said about Daniel Pantaleo in his interview with 10-4 Tavern, I wanted to throw up in my own mouth. Because what did he say? He said that young Rodney Harrison was involved in a similar situation where he had to choke a large adversary. But the only reason that Rodney Harrison is still a cop today is because his adversary didn't die. So he's never given any pushback. He's a nice guy, but not a good guy. He is full of shit, honestly. Full of shit. Every time that guy talks, I'm going to just throw up in my own mouth. He forgot to mention, and that's a great point, John, just going back to what you said. He said, I don't really have a police mentor, but leadership is Phil Banks. So he's, in my opinion, he sees Phil Banks as a big brother, almost like a father figure also. And it's interesting about Phil Banks. There's an old saying that Kevin Bacon, in Hollywood, Kevin Bacon is the 7 degrees of separation, that somehow all Hollywood is connected to Kevin Bacon. And I think the same thing goes to the NYPD, the upper management, black chiefs, and even some white chiefs at the top that are connected to Philip Banks. He's almost like the 7 degrees of separation. So anyone that says that Philip Banks is their mentor could take that and shove it up their ass, because Philip Banks, in my opinion, is at the center and the hyper focused when it comes to this crime era and this the Crumbs team here. Absolutely ridiculous. And it's important to note that he said he doesn't have a police mentor, but someone in leadership. So and in my opinion, Marlon, I know you're saying he's trying to distance him, and I think I get that as well. But I think he's also trying to say that he was kind of a father figure and also a big brother figure as well.
Yeah. So the other thing I think, like when I watched Marlon sent me down a rabbit hole actually, and that's why I kind of changed my mind, because he told me about the risk room or whatever with Rodney Harrison. Now I knew it was there. I just didn't watch it because, like I said, I think that they're full of shit, but I didn't realize like how full of shit. You know what I mean? And I think like it's a complete audition for another job. It's a complete audition for that consulting company. It's not a real unfiltered conversation. And like you'll see moments of that. I think that from the episodes I watched, I think the guy Rudy Hall, I think he's a progressive, but I think he's an honest progressive. From the episodes that I saw, I'm listening to Rodney Harrison. I'm like, yeah, he's damn sure a progressive, but he damn sure ain't an honest one. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of topics that they covered with Tanya Meisenholder, who's another person who's considered a leader without a badge. We went in depth on her and her interview on that British guy's podcast, another loser. I can't think of his name, another leader without a badge. He's a cop for 5 minutes. And she basically said that, white cops are no good. The old school way of doing things, no good. Cops are knuckle draggers. They got to change it. We need more women in policing. Women are better cops. All this stuff that, studies, all stuff that's skewed and all stuff that's biased. And it just showed. And then she's on like this podcast and they're talking about the well-being of officers. I was like, really? Where were you for Marlon? Where were you for me? Where were you for the 16,000 of us that you forced to put something in their body that they didn't want? Where were you? You didn't care about our well-being. You didn't care about our well-being mentally, physically, spiritually. You didn't give a shit about it. Until today, you don't. And you're going to sit there and care about it. And then they were talking about rape victims and victims of sex crimes. And they were all so passionate about it. Meanwhile, they all worked with and around sexual deviants who were predatory towards women. And it's like, wait a minute. Did you work in the NYPD? And you were friendly and you worked with these guys and you said nothing, but now you're out here on a podcast claiming that you give a shit about it? And all the shit that went down, you haven't said a word about any of it? You know, so I was like, wow, this guy's full of shit. But this segment I thought that I was like, wow, this was like a real eye-opening segment. So this is Dana Rachlin. Dana Rachlin, I believe, is in charge of Build the Block. So Dana works with these violence interrupter groups, right? She's part of the, we police our own, we need people out there in the community. And look, I'm willing to have a conversation to sit down with anybody of these groups. But there's a lot of questions that I'm going to have that guys like Rodney Harrison and Rudy Hall aren't going to have. And there's a lot of pushback that's going to be had that aren't going to happen on these podcasts, on this specific podcast. But listen to this. Well, I'm going to probably have to stop it because it's 5 minutes. But just listen to Rodney Harrison. And by the way, this could have been Terrell Anderson because he's credited with having that shutdown in Brownsville at the 7-3 precinct. It's credited as that it's his brainchild, right? We saw that. We police our own, that we're going to have violence interventions, not cops. We showed you the clip of him in the de Blasio and Dante de Blasio's documentary where he was sitting there telling them, yeah, we need you, not my cops. Weird for a police leader. It's very strange for me. But listen to him give a 3-minute rant on how great the violence intervention program is. And I just want to preface it. Right before this conversation, they were talking about the shot spot. And Dana had said about the shot spotter, she said, and for those of you that don't know, the shot spotter is a device that is scattered throughout the city. And when anything sounds like when a decibel level cracks, it gets to a certain level that should be a gunshot, the sound triggers a shot spotter. Now, there's numerous ways. Some of it's done through AI. Some of it's done through it gets sent to an expert, and the expert listens to it and determines that more than likely this is a gunshot, which in my opinion is stupid because they're always going to lean on just send the cops, and which they always do. And so it alerts in that area that more than likely a gunshot went off, and the sound comes from here, and it scatters cops there. So Dana says, well, she would like to know the effectiveness of the shot spotter, because maybe if the shot spotter is only accurate 7% of the time, that maybe that would prove that the efficacy is no good, and we should divert that money and those resources that we're spending elsewhere. Right? And I'm like, yeah, I was like, you know what? Fair point. But even if it's correct 7% of the time, and 7% of the time you get there and it was an actual shot fire, or God forbid someone's laying on the ground in need of assistance, that they didn't just bleed out and die, I would say that that's an effective measure. But she says that about the shot spotter, to which they both agree. Like, you know what? That's a fair point. Like, we could analyze it. We don't have to go all in on the shot spotter. I, till today, have a lot of issue with these shot spotter companies because, again, when you look at the high crime, violent areas in New York, miraculously, those things just turned off. They just stopped going off under the Eric Adams administration. They continue to stay off today. In the most high crime areas where shootings happen right in the vicinity of shot spotters, those things don't go off anymore. But that's a conversation for another day. But here we go about the violence intervention program. Zero transparency. Zero data. We often sit here and say, data could be manipulated. So data doesn't tell the whole story, but there's zero transparency in how these groups operate. There's zero data to even prove effectiveness. And if the same way we're going to look at the shot spotter and say, well, could this money be used elsewhere better? I think the same could be hold true. The same lens should hold true on every single program, including the violence intervention program. But we don't need that because here's woke Rodney.
That I had an opportunity to oversee the whole police department. And even as my time as chief of patrol, even being a precinct commander in a difficult community in Harlem, I want to make sure that this is very crystal clear. I don't care if you're in law enforcement, if you're doing community work, violence interrupters work. They help. They are assistant when it comes to this conversation is public safety and risk that cops go through. So I want to make sure that that's very
Doesn't give one example of how they work or why. I just want you to take note of that. Doesn't give one example.
crystal clear. And I've had you can ask any violence interrupter or people that oversee the crisis management teams. My name still rings bells with them. These still reach out to me to ask me my opinion because I embrace them. So let's make sure that that's very crystal clear before I go forward. They are a major attribute to public safety in any community. And the work that you just talked about that they do behind the scenes, they do not get the credit for. I don't care if you like them or not. A lot of work that they do does not help their credit score.
Like, it doesn't answer it. Doesn't give an example. Oh, I have a relationship with these people. Okay. What do they do specifically, Chief?
And there's a lot of things that young men of color happen to go through, men and women, girls too, happen to go through behind the scenes that these people that do this type of work help a lot of individuals get out of difficult situations. So I want to make sure that that's very, very crystal clear because I'm very passionate about this. But when I use the word accountability, I want to make sure that there's a little bit of a barrier that I would like to see with the individuals that are violence interrupters from the crisis management team.
So now you're going to hear the first example of what his experience is with violence interventions. You ready? Ready for this?
And you cannot go into a hospital after an individual is shot and tell that person, "Hey, don't talk to the cops." You can't do that. And that's the accountability that I have a frustration with. I'm not asking them to be cop friendly, police friendly. I'm not asking them to, because they have to keep their street cred by kind of being anti-law enforcement. I get it, I got it.
Chief.
But you can't do, wait, let me finish. I didn't interrupt you. The one concern that I do have is you cannot interfere with an ongoing investigation. And the detectives, the investigators, and listen, I'm going to be an investigator until the day I die, even if I'm not back in law enforcement.
Did you hear that Freudian slip? Did you hear that? So the only example he gives is that violence interrupters, the only example he gives is negative. They're walking into commands when someone's shot and telling them don't cooperate with the police, which will lead to more than likely further gun violence, will impede an investigation, and keep an offender, a violent offender, out on New York City streets uncharged. And then the Freudian slip comes, even if I never go back into law enforcement, saying, here I am auditioning, I am that empty vessel, use me. I'll go a little bit further into this, but what do you guys think about this? I was like, woke. Marlon was damn right. I take back what I said on Friday.
Marlon, I want to take a stab at this first.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to throw up in my own mouth. I think his response here is contradictory of himself, because he said the violence interrupters are a success in any community, but then he goes on really specifically to talk about violence interrupters of color. So he said any community, but he doesn't really mean any community. He's not talking about your community, John. He's not talking about the Italians. He's not talking about the Jews. He's talking about low-income Black communities, people of color, and that they have to have street cred. I didn't know violence interrupters or cops or crisis management need street cred. Do our cops need street credit also? That's absolutely ridiculous. And what he describes is the violence interrupters are actually more of a hurdle and more of an obstacle than a supplemental tool for the NYPD. Especially anyone in law enforcement, any active or retired cop who's ever responded to a shooting or has been involved in investigation, a damn good detective, and we have numerous of them in this chat right now, including Marlon Bethel, who did investigative work. And John and I were both in special operations. We were on the scene, involved in numerous shootings throughout the city. And I can tell you this, the hospital where a person shot is extremely imperative and extremely an important process to to the investigative evidence and tools that are garnered during an investigation, especially preliminary when someone's shot. Where someone's shot is where the detective bureau usually initially responds even before the scene, or they'll divvy it up. Where some of the detectives will respond to the hospital and some will respond to a scene, because that's where you start to get information right away and a case will unfold. So if a violence interrupters are trying to impede that investigation, they're actually leaving more room for retaliatory gunfire. And in most times in New York City, especially in low-income neighborhoods, I know I worked in these low-income black neighborhoods, most of the gun violence was affiliated by gangs or crews. And what happens when we have shooting or gun violence that is surrounded by gangs or crews? Well, ultimately, any special ops teams will tell you immediately when someone's shot, you're responding to the neighborhoods and the locations where the rival gangs hang out, where the rival gangs are associate themselves to prevent any further violence. So yet, through his response, and he's so animated and so expressive and so supportive of the violence interrupters, he can't provide any data to show how it's been effective. And if he says it's so effective, why haven't we seen anything? Where's the transparency? Why haven't we seen any documentation or any literature showing the effectiveness of the violence interrupters? We know the ability of the shot spotters. I can tell you the shot spotters are not something new. When I was in Iraq in 2003, we started to hear about the technology of gunshot detection, and we got acoustic and spot shot detection in 2007 in Iraq. It was attached to Humvees, it was attached to vehicles to identify where gunfire may be coming from, where the muzzle sound of it may be. So that's not new technology, but that's something that you're able to measure. And why can't we measure the violence interrupters? Where is the data to show it's been effective? And why are we only associating with those in a neighborhood of color? Absolutely ridiculous. Where are the violence interrupters in the 6-6 precinct? John, you worked in the 6-6 in Borough Park. Where are the violence interrupters in the 6-6 precinct? In a Jewish, predominantly Orthodox neighborhood, where are the violence interrupters in the 6-2 precinct in Bensonhurst? Not to my knowledge. Do they have violence interrupters in the 1-2-3 precinct? No, something only associated with color. And this here is woke ideology. But in my opinion, I think Ronnie Harrison is completely calculated, and I think he knows exactly what he's saying. I don't think he believes this. I think when he goes home at night, he doesn't believe the bullshit that he's spewing out. That's my argument. Marlon, I don't think you're wrong. Maybe he does believe it, but that's just my opinion. But either way, it doesn't matter because he's still regurgitating this information. One thing I think is true, and this is where I agree with you, John, he's always on the interview stage. Right now, he said it, right? If I ever go back, if Zohran Mamdani ever gives me a chance, because that's what he's waiting for, they're always paving the way for self-promotion or paving the way for their offspring.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, you know what? Rodney always leaves room when he talks. He keeps saying that if he goes back, he needs to have control over his department and politics can't be involved. But that's really that's really a way of giving himself room to say that if he gets appointed somewhere else, that hey, this mayor gave me he gave me the authority to run my department, and this mayor is going to give me the full he gave me the full authority to really run the department and be the PC of this department. He's just giving himself room to once again come back. These guys can't help themselves, they can't help. They hate no longer being called chief and no longer having that power over people,
Spot on, brother. Spot on.
When you've had, I got a couple clips with Corey too. I'll play, right? Corey, Kenneth Corey, right? Something else I realized when watching that is that these guys lack self-awareness. And I think if you've been called chief for a long time, if you've been called sir, or you had people like, being yes men, or if you've been circled by yes men for years, you get into this complex where you're completely like self-aware, or you lack complete self-awareness of the fact that, you know, that some of the policies you put out there were dumb and they didn't work, you know. And I think that's something else with Rodney's case. Like, Rodney will talk about accountability. He mentions it a lot in the interview he did with Tanya Meisenholder. He mentions it a lot. And yet, when you think about accountability, you wonder, where was any of that when, you know, when Madry was doing his thing, you know? He talked about that specifically in regards to women and, you know, sexual harassment on the job and all of that. And I keep thinking to myself, where was any of that when Madry was doing his thing, you know? And how bad it looks, how bad of an example it sets for the supervisors, right? Now, keep in mind also that Dana Ratchlin, right, is also, right, she herself also has a lawsuit against the job, right? And she alleges that that Madry, Chell, Kaz, a couple others were trying to basically undermine her lawsuit, her rape allegations. And the other thing is, some of those allegations came in 2020 and 2021. Now, what happened in 2020? Well, Rodney was a 3-star chief, right? Rodney was chief of, I believe, he was chief of patrol in 2020, right? And in
Internal
2021, he
affairs.
was internal affairs in 20. Well, he was that also. I think that was maybe 2019. He was internal affairs. But yeah, he would have known about this too, because the initial allegations dropped around 2017. But anyway, the accusations she makes, a lot of them happened in 2020 and 2021. And in 2021, you, Rodney, were chief of department. So you tell me you had no awareness of this? How are these guys just doing whatever they want and you're chief of department? Like, where was the accountability then? You know? I didn't see that interview, John. I'm wondering if Rachel of Dana Ratchlin brought any of that up, you know? Because I don't understand how you could have an interview with Rodney Harrison and not bring this up, considering, you know, he outranked a lot of these guys back then. But
she definitely mentioned it. They did not go in depth, and I would, you know, I can't see that how he's not very well aware of all of the stuff that happened and what Dana's alleging. And honestly, I totally believe everything that Dana said. You know, so like that's one thing. I don't like everything she listed in her lawsuit. I believe, like, what she didn't say that any of these guys raped her. She said that she was a victim of rape. They bumbled the entire investigation. They screwed the whole thing up. She never went forward with the accuser, because basically the DA was like, look, the whole investigation screwed up. These guys screwed it up. Madry, Shell, and Kaz screwed the whole thing up. They should have got special victims involved earlier, and they didn't. And they messed up a lot of things within special victims. And so Dana winds up not going through with the prosecution because she's not in her right mind. And she's like, well, if they're not going to get convicted, why am I even putting myself through this? Right? Like, what am I going to do if the DA's telling me it's nothing? And then what happens is, you know, look, she's an advocate for the community. She's not technically on the side of the police. But prior to that happening, she was in commands in Brooklyn North every day. Like, she was there. They were selling this violence intervention stuff all over because everyone had to buy it. All of the Brooklyn North guys went woke. They all had to buy it, hook, line, and sinker. Every CO, yeah, violence intervention's great. It's the best. It's this. Never talk about the ills of it. Never talk about the lack of transparency. You know, it's great. It's great. It's great. They won't give you one example of why it's great, but then they'll give you a couple of examples of how it's bad, and only a few because they don't want to get off that grift, right? They want to stay in with the in crowd. And then, so what happens in 2020 is there's a video that comes out where there was an agitator, and I had dealt with her at a previous protest. There was an agitator who gets in the face of a cop. The cop shoves her. She goes flying, I guess hits her head or doesn't. They keep walking, but it's in the middle. It's in the middle of a riot. So what happens is Dana starts, I don't know if it's Dana or people that Dana's associated with, start going after Craig Edelman, who was the inspector of the 7-3 at the time, right? And so people go on the news, start bashing Craig Edelman. Shay does a Hot 97 interview where they bring that up, and basically she gets a message like, you're done. She's no longer allowed in the precinct. And then all of a sudden, she starts getting letters. Letters start getting sent around the Black community saying that, basically smearing her, saying she's trying to put innocent Black men in jail. And she alleges that that is the upper echelon of the NYPD. And I will sit there and say that is their MO, because they've done it to myself. They've done it to Eric. They've done it to this podcast. And I totally agree with, I didn't agree with the attacks on Craig Edelman necessarily. And I didn't think it was wrong that the cop shoved her. Like, maybe he should have gave her help, but it was a crazy scenario what happened. So I didn't agree with her takes on that stuff. I certainly don't agree with her takes on the great work that violence intervention is doing without showing any of it, without you coming out with any data. But what she says happened to her, I totally believe. Totally, utterly believe. So she doesn't go into it there. I didn't listen to be fair, I didn't listen to the whole thing. I stopped here. I stopped after this because I was laughing so hard that I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, this is absolutely ridiculous. And then she goes on to like basically say, well, they're in the hospital, we're there to console the victim, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, look, they're not legal representatives. Like, if you want a lawyer there because somebody might be, you know what, let me play it. Let me play it so you guys can hear it.
At the end of the day, in order for us to make communities safe, there is a role of accountability. Now, I will also say there has to be a partnership. We have to work with them. They are a major contributor to making neighborhoods and communities safe and helping those that are unfortunately going through difficult times in their life. But yet at the same time, they need to be held accountable if they are having an effect on something when it comes to an act of violence that just occurred. So just keep that in mind. But I know you have some response there, Dana, so I'll give the mic back to you.
Well, I was just gonna ask, like, have you ever been jammed up on the job?
Have I ever been jammed up on a job?
This is just a yes or no. Just
no.
Like,
the answer is no.
But I'm sure you've overseen people being jammed up because you've been patrol or whatever, right?
Of course.
So, chief of detective, police commissioner, and when somebody gets jammed up, they say, "I want my union rep," right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, I think what you're talking about as being accountability it's a misuse of the word, because what you're asking for is cooperation and support in what your objectives are, and what we're talking about. When I have if I have somebody that you want to talk to, right? You say to me, Dana, your young person is just, we need to talk to them about X, Y, and Z. Don't tell them not to talk to us. You're saying that that's an accountability issue, like a measure of not being accountable. And what I'm saying is my role in that moment is to say, no problem, no problem, chief, because you know that we do things called safe surrenders. However, he's not talking to you. We're calling a lawyer. The lawyer will work with this person, and then the lawyer and the department and everybody can work it out.
Dana, you're talking about a situation where.
So they go in, and so what she's saying is like, well, in case the guy is a suspect in a shooting too. Well, we're going to get him the lawyer. We're going to oversee him. So like what Dana doesn't understand and what they don't understand is because they're like, oh, that's different. No, it's not different. Doesn't matter if the guy's a victim or a potential perpetrator. We're paying hundreds of $millions to have people come in and interfere in a police investigation. That's what taxpayers are paying their money for. And somehow you're sitting there and saying how great it is for public safety and how we need it. And police departments must work with them. But you can't give one example of why it's good. It was sick, dude. So yeah, I recommend go over to the Woke Room podcast. I mean, what was it? What is it? Oh, the risk room.
That's accurate, John. I think that's more accurate.
You said it right the first time.
Yeah, whatever. I think you find them through the risk room. I think, we'll label them the Woke Room. Go over there, listen to that interview. Because honestly, I was like, wow. I listened to that interview. I didn't listen to the entire one. I got to finish that one. But there were two other ones with the police expert, Dr. Tanya Meisenholder. And it was like, I was like, wow, these guys are legit woke. They're legit progressives. And Rodney Harrison's full of shit. And so is Tanya Meisenholder, because she wants to pretend like she's so passionate about these things and she cares about all this stuff. Where were you, Tanya, besides denying religious accommodations and sending people to the slaughter? Where were you?
Two things can be true at the same time. We often talk about this. So I think, in my opinion, I've heard Dana speak numerous times, and I was highly aware of who she was in Brooklyn North. I think she's a left-wing nut, to be honest. However, I do think what happened with her with the NYPD upper management is absolutely true. And I wouldn't have believed it until what happened to us. And that's the reality. What happened to John and I is exactly the same template that happened to Dana Rachel. When the upper management finds a way to utilize internal affairs, which is the henchman for the upper management, they will attack you and smear you, and they use the same campaign to try to create and try to illustrate that you're emotionally disturbed when you make a complaint against the upper management, which is what they did to myself and John. We had legitimate threats, and instead they tried to make like John and myself were emotionally disturbed and try to decertify us from our pensions. And you know what? They were unsuccessful, and we still have them. And I tell you the truth, honestly, John, I know you feel the same. That's why we've taken this path. I don't give a shit. I'm not scared. If they took my pension, I'd still be doing this podcast. I will never back down to them, because it's only money. Money comes in your hands and goes. One day we're all going to be in the box, and we're all going to be in the same place. So I can always make money. I'm not afraid of that. But like I said, I do believe that her ideology is a bit of a left-wing nut. I think but she's open to her ideology. However, she was working with the police. They allowed her so much access. She learned a lot about the police department, and she went to the upper management because she was close with them. She was hobnobbing with them. She was close with them, and they turned their back on her because she didn't fit their narrative anymore. The upper management treats everyone like they're a prostitute, and when they're finished with you, they'll dump you and dump you to the curb. They did it to me. They did it to all of us. That's why we're no longer employed with the NYPD. So I do, in fact, think that her story is absolutely true. And every time I watch Rodney Harrison and John Shell or anyone of the upper management of that core, it's ultimately the same. It's this woke ideology. They're infected and injected, and they're all playing pretend because they're always on the interview stage. They're always looking for that next opportunity, whether it's with the NYPD, outside the NYPD, but they're always looking for that hook, line, and sinker. I don't even think they care about the money. I just think they care about the prestige and what it's attached to. And they're always looking for that. And so is Rodney Harrison. I think that risk room is just, every episode should just be called interview number 5, interview number 6. It's just another interview for Rodney Harrison to show, hey, look Zohran Mamdani. I love violence interrupters. Look, Zohran Mamdani. I love woke ideology. I think the community should protect themselves. The community should police themselves. And I do think he's playing pretend. He's full of shit, man. If somehow we could get inside his brain, I do believe there's someone dancing around and goes, all right, Rodney, you're going home now. Now you got to go back to real Rodney Harrison. That's what I think.
Yeah. So keep in mind, guys, that the violence interrupter program in New York City is since 2016, between 2016 and 2025, they have absorbed $192 million. Okay. And as pointed out by the comptroller himself, let me see if I can pull that up. There are numerous problems with the program, including, as we've said a couple times on the show, lack of accountability, and gaps in their data themselves. And besides New York, also, this program has collapsed in Washington, D.C. Now, the program originally came out of something called Ceasefire, which was in Chicago in the late 90s. And how well did that work out for Chicago? Because Chicago has gotten even worse since the late 90s. So that really worked out well. It worked out so well that now sees this thing, which again, it started out as Ceasefire, but it's been renamed now. Okay. It's spread out to 25 states. So it was so successful. Chicago is now even more of a crime dump than it was before, right? But again, these are what you're seeing on screen now is some excerpts from the NYC Comptroller's Cure for Crisis, which was a report issued in 2025. And the comptroller himself, again, stated that that program has multiple problems with it. Okay. So it's pretty, to hear Rodney himself, not one of the problems I have with a lot of these chiefs, both black and white, right, is that they don't want to tell you the truth. Okay. Tell the truth. You know very well all the problems with the program, and yet you defend it. Rodney defended it here, even while telling us, while letting it slip out all the problems with the program. So if there's so much problems with the program, why are we defending it for? The reason why they're defending it is because this program is so heavily tied to politics and politicians and the Democratic Party, okay, that they're all intertwined with it, okay? This is Corey himself, Kenneth Corey, the guy who replaced Rodney as chief of department. Corey came on in 2022 of January, and he retired around December of 2022, right? So Corey now works for the University of Chicago's Crime Lab, okay, which is an NGO funded with government dollars and corporate money from Wall Street, from firms like Citadel, where Ken Griffin, that's the firm. These are some of their policy initiatives. You can see on the bottom left corner, community violence intervention. It's the violence interrupters program, okay? It's a core part of their initiative, because the crime lab, right? Their goal is their philosophy is to prioritize treat violence as a public health and behavioral problem rather than relying solely on punitive measures. So basically, they want to treat it as a mental health problem and a disease, okay? And they want more cops being community affairs cops and less actually being proactive policing. And as we talked about many times on here, one of the biggest problems with modern policing, especially in New York City, is we've become a reactive police department that cops are now scared of being proactive and being cops. And this program, and it's and the program being ceasefire, which is now being renamed the violence interrupter program, right? This program is one of the programs that have caused the current that have created the current docile and impotency in the NYPD. Okay, the whole program is flawed because everything too much under the umbrella of policing, when a lot of this stuff should be completely detached from policing. But there are a lot of chiefs who are being sent to this program, and then they're taking what they learned from this program and going back to their cities and implementing it. And I think this is really meant to completely re-engineer American law enforcement.
Absolutely. And when you look at NYPD leadership, they all bought it hook, line, and sinker, regardless of where they are. They stand politically. Doesn't matter how they are at home. Doesn't matter how they are on the streets. They're woke in these damn streets, and they want to re-engineer policing into a London-based style policing, less cops. They want more community intervention. They want less enforcement. They want less punitive measures. And you see it, and it's clear as day with all of them. I mean, this probably, again, I think this guy was the worst police commissioner ever. I think he was ballless. I think he has zero spine. You see Jeff Madry in the background sitting there with their mask on. Ben Tucker's sitting there next to him. And this was unbelievable. This was Dermot Shea in 2020 apologizing for systemic racism within the NYPD. Now, again, I'm going to say, and I know you're upset, Hood Mayor, and good. I'm glad that you're paying attention to what I'm saying. Yeah, an absolute undeserved chip on your shoulder, because all of us have experienced, especially in our age range, in our generation. I'm not talking historically. I'm talking, I was born in 1980. And if you were born in 1980, we've experienced the same world. The same exact world. Now, did you see the world through an Italian kid from Bensonhurst's eyes? No, you absolutely did not. And did I see the world from a black kid from Bed-Stuy's eyes? No, I absolutely did not. Does your opinion matter? Yeah, it matters. Does mine matter? Yeah, it does. But not any less than yours. But that's not what the black community, black officers, and even these white chiefs are trying to tell us. They're trying to say that, no, your opinion and your voice and your needs matter more than everybody else's. And I'm sorry, I deny that because that is bullshit. This is America. I believe in equal opportunity. I don't believe in any form of supremacy. Everybody's so hopped up on white supremacy that exists nowhere in New York City. And no one says anything about the black supremacy throughout New York City that occurs everywhere. No one says a word about it. It's perfectly fine to be a racist, to say racist things, to push policies that are supremacist policies, just as long as you're black and you're doing it within benefits of the black community. So I'm sorry. If you're upset, good. It's a conversation that needs to be had, because I'm sorry, I'm not like this guy. I'm not a self-castrated, neutered, spineless individual who is going to make this world say it's perfectly okay to discriminate against my children. Absolutely not. I don't think it's okay to discriminate against your children. I don't think it's okay to discriminate against you. And you shouldn't think it's okay to discriminate against me and my children. So, and that's exactly what diversity, equity, inclusion does. And I don't know how many times I got to say it. And again, the top people will not debate me on this. So that just shows you how full of shit they are.
These many years of racist policies and practices have caused, and more importantly, continue to cause.
What racist policies and practices, Dermot? Which ones? The ones that save lives? The ones that brought crime to actual historic lows?
Immeasurable harm.
The commissioner spoke Tuesday at an event hosted by the Harlem Chamber of Commerce in CUNY. He says unfair and racist policing has been going on for centuries in our country, dating back to slavery.
Whether it was arresting runaway slaves or enforcing unjust Jim Crow laws, it's been a stain on law enforcement's rich history, but a stain nevertheless. We have to acknowledge this truth, and I do. And we must also acknowledge the NYPD's historical role at times in the mistreatment of communities of color, and I do as well, and I'm sorry for it.
Shea says the department is working on programs and training to address and prevent the systemic racism that has existed in the NYPD. He is also encouraging people of color to join the department to help make change.
I mean, like, could you find a bigger cock than this guy? I mean, it's unbelievable, dude. I'm sorry. Like, I'm talking today. I'm not talking about history. All right. I'm not going to go give you my family's generational roots in Sicily. I'm not going to talk about all of the Arab and African countries that came over and invaded Sicily and how that affected my generations and me going forward and my education level and my privileges and the reason I had access to nothing and I didn't have any of the power at the top. I'm not going to talk about it because it's garbage. I'm talking about today. I'm talking about here and the now.
Yeah.
John, before I take a stab at this, you want to read off Kalshi? This way I don't get cut off.
Oh shit! Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, sorry to pick on you, Hood Mayor, but I think I think it. Like you get all butthurt about it, but I'm sorry. Again, you're welcome to come on here and tell us all the great things about diversity, equity, inclusion, because I haven't found any of them. And again, I'm going to say one last time about it. I believe that it violates every form of equal opportunity law that there is. It is a Marxist ideology. It is there to divide and conquer, and it makes no sense. I spoke with someone yesterday who is an advocate for the black community. I'm not going to say their name, but I spoke to them and I said that. I said, my problem is this. You're saying that you're the minority now and it's okay to discriminate against whites. But what happens when you're no longer the minority? Could we go back to discriminating against black people now? Because that's what's happening. You're not going to be the minority in a few years in New York City. And so that's my issue with it. Racism's racism, discrimination's discrimination, whoever you do it against. There's no such thing as positive discrimination. It's all discrimination. There's no positive racism. The equity that they're talking about is not equity, it's supremacy. So so it's time for a message from our partners over at Kalshi. We make predictions every single day about pop culture, the economy, and the biggest storylines making headlines. Kalshi is America's #1 predictions market platform. It lets you trade those predictions in a live market. Here's a good one. Will Spider-Man, Brand New Day, new movie just came out. It's the new Spider-Man in a series of 4, I believe. Will it get a Rotten Tomatoes score of above 90? Right now, Spider-Man Brand New Day getting a Rotten Tomatoes score above 90 is currently trading at 8%, meaning a $100 trade would pay out $1,051. On Kalshi, you're trading against your peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code FINEST to get up to $500 in bonus credits when you trade 25. We also have the QR code for our link up on the screen. So if you put your phone up to it, if you put your phone's camera up to it, it'll give you our link directly. So you could access it through there if you want to access that up to $500 bonus. KALSHI, Kalshi. Trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk. It may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory.
Listen, I have an affinity for Hood Mayor. Hood Mayor has, been with us a long time. He's a good friend to the podcast. Kind of like that crazy girlfriend Hood Mayor. If you're watching this, sometimes he loves us and sometimes he's angry at us, gets very emotionally involved, but we appreciate the input. But there's a comment here that he puts, right? And it says, first it was Irish, then it was Italian, then black time. It's still black time a little bit. Next it will be Spanish time, then Jewish time. So ultimately what you're saying is it's kind of like a circle and an evolution that we should accept, or a cycle. And, I don't agree with that either. It's almost like saying that, when a family has a cycle of issues and no generation ever tries to stop the cycle, that we should just accept it. And I don't think that we should accept that it's someone's time. It's not an empire. It shouldn't be an empire. Now it's the blacks' turn, or it's Spanish. It should be, if it is diverse, as we say, we want it to be diverse, it shouldn't be anyone's time. It should be an American's time. It should be New Yorkers' time. And who is a New Yorker? New York could be someone who's black. It could be someone who's Spanish. It could be someone who's Italian. It could be Jewish. We shouldn't have a circle of these identities. And ultimately, I think that's completely discriminatory, and that's racist in itself. I don't believe in reverse. As John said earlier, I agree. I approve that message. I don't agree that there's a such thing as reverse racism or reverse discriminatory. It's either discrimination or it's racism or not. You can't have two. You can't have both of those at the same time. Now, with that being said, some people might ask, why do we even care? Why are we putting an emphasis on woke NYPD chiefs? Why? Because I've been saying this for a long time. I've been asking in almost 4 years in retirement. I retired September 30th, 2022. I can't believe how time flies. I'm almost at my 4-year mark. And in my retirement, I've been asking for one white chief just to stand up and speak out against the atrocities that are going on in this past administration that now continue into Zohran Mamdani, which mirrors the Eric Adams of former Mayor Bill de Blasio. And the reason why is because ultimately woke leadership is exactly that. It's pandering to the politicians, giving them what they want, even when they know damn well that it's for police and it's bad policing. In simplest terms, the ideology that the woke left progressives are infecting the NYPD leadership is bad for policing. And these white chiefs and black chiefs, they know damn well it's bad for policing. And none of them, especially the white chiefs, and I say the white chiefs ultimately are the most discriminatory in themselves. Because just as you showed this video here with former Commissioner Dermot Shea, he's discriminating against white police. He's discriminating against himself. It was the white chiefs that were if we say that it's their time, it was the white chiefs that discriminated against themselves to say, hey, we need more diversity, to say, hey, we need to discriminate against whites to make sure that we create room for blacks. Instead of saying that this is absolutely ridiculous, I find it discriminatory towards blacks, it's insulting. I find it discriminatory towards whites. And ultimately, we need to make sure it's organic and create diversity. So not standing up against these woke progressive politics, it makes them all nice guys. They all smile. We want to do what's right. We want to make people happy, make them feel good, tell everyone that we're sorry for being racist. How are we racist? The same policies that you applied, former Commissioner Dermot Shea, as a 4-4 commanding officer, are the policies that work, the intrusive policing that helped that neighborhood, you now say are racist. So which one do you believe in? So I don't think any of these guys believe in the shit they say, but ultimately they put on a smile and they're a nice guy, but they're not good guys, because good guys would challenge the woke progressive politics because they know damn well it's not good for policing, even if it would put their careers on the line. I've been told numerous times I've received a lot of opposition by cops, even some people at rank. So what are they supposed to do? They're going to put their careers on the line. Well, you're supposed to stand on morality. And I do believe sometimes you do have to put your career on the line. You do. Why? Because you want to pave the way for your offspring so that they don't have to live in an environment where they have to play pretend. If you really cared about policing, if you really cared about the residents, you would stand up, even if that means career suicide. And I haven't seen anyone do it. And anyone that argues that, well, John stood up. That was career suicide. Marlon stood up. That was career suicide. I stood up against CCRB. That was career suicide. And guess what? We survived and we're still thriving.
Yeah. Well said, Eric. Well said.
Thank you, brother.
I feel sad for I like you, Hood Mayor, but sometimes I feel like you might be in too much of this victimhood. You might have internalized too much of it, And I feel sad for those of you, for people who have. If you're in the Black community and you've internalized this victimhood, I feel sad for you because you live in a small world where, I've heard things. I mentioned to my family I want to go down south, and I've heard statements like they're racist down there. There's no Black people down there, and that's because you've internalized all the progressive bullshit. Okay, and again, if you live in a small world because now you're afraid of going certain places and experiencing the world. And I've been like all over the world, the places where like I'm the only Black guy there, and I'll keep going to places all over the world because my Blackness is not me. It's just I'm Black, so what? Okay, so you live in a small world if you keep thinking like that. And the problem is that the people in charge know that you do, and they will manipulate you using that. Okay. So let's go back to Corey for a quick second. I'm going to get back to you again, Rodney. I have more videos on you, but let's go back to Corey for a quick second, right? This was an interview he gave where the host asked him about morale and about the attrition rate and basically the exodus of cops, right? And I want you to listen to Corey's response.
Chief, you mentioned the understaffing and the morale. So how do we, first of all, what's the reason for the exodus? We read about the exodus of a number of seasoned officers who say they've had enough. Why is it we can't get more people we should be getting to come forward?
I think that there's a few reasons for that, and it's not complicated. I mean, one is the public narrative around policing right now, and particularly in communities of color. This is a conversation that I had with community leaders for many years. I said, it's extremely challenging when you vilify police with every word out of your mouth to then convince someone in that community that they should join the police department and, help diversify the police and serve their community. It's also, so the public dialogue around it, but pay has not kept pace with inflation in many police departments, and New York probably chief among them. So, NYPD PBA has been without a contract since 2017. They got their last raise in 2016. Wow. So you have officers working 6.5 years without getting a raise. You know, starting salary is tens of thousands below what it should be. You know, when I started in 19.
He's going on about pay. Okay, bullshit. The point is, let's go back to the beginning again.
So how do we, first of all, what's the
Listen
reason for
to this
the
exactly.
exodus? We read about the exodus of a number of seasoned officers who say they've had enough. Why is it we can't get more people we should be getting to come forward?
You know, I think that there's a few reasons for that, and it's not complicated. I mean, one is the public narrative around policing right now, and particularly in communities of color. This is a conversation that I had with community leaders for many years. I said, you know, it's extremely challenging when you vilify police with every word out of your mouth to then convince someone in that community that they should join the police department.
Yeah. So here's my problem with that. They asked you about morale and why guys are leaving, and your response is to immediately deflect and to talk about things like pay and then talk about minority recruitment. You know, and I think in a way he kind of let us know what they were thinking around that time. And it's not about you guys leaving or you guys being pushed out. So what? John and Marlon got to leave for the virus. So what? They didn't take it. Who cares? Who cares about Eric? Okay, who cares? Let's go. Let's go get the recruit. Let's increase minority recruitment. Okay. So you know the point is that in the beginning, Eric showed you this memo from the mayor, right? I think they don't care about veterans leaving the job because the goal was more minorities in the job. And you know, if you guys don't want to, you know, if you guys got to be pushed out, so what? We don't care. Okay, that's the agenda is to diversify and to DEI up the job and to put people into the police department that are more in line with the agenda. And keep in mind also, this is around the same time you're seeing the quick elevation of again the Banks cartel.
You know, I just want to go one further and say, Marlon, I totally agree with you. Not only do I think that they don't care that the veteran apparatus of the NYPD took a mass exodus, I think they actually encouraged it, and I think it was actually calculated. And I think that COVID, during the height of 2020, the summer of love, proved that. When you need the veterans at most, when the veterans were battling through the riots, and then ultimately in 2021 hit, and we had the vaccine mandate, the same veterans that were out there keeping and protecting the New York City residents during the time of looting and rioting and keeping the job afloat as numerous cops were in and out sick. 25% of the job was not working at any given time because they were out sick with COVID. The veteran apparatus was pushed out the door with the vaccine mandate. And I think it was completely calculated. I think it was a push to get rid of the alpha white male, which is John, myself, to get rid of Marlon, the critical thinker. Didn't matter. Marlon, you're black, but you're a critical thinker. It was more important to have those that are compliant and to revamp the police department with DEI hires and a completely different apparatus. I mean, I saw the onset. I said it 2018, and we see it prevalent now, that the candidate assessment division was seeking meek, timid, and docile hires. And we see it. And it was proven under Terrell Anderson of those that were hired that were disqualified or unqualified. So I think it's completely nomenclature, which is why I really enjoy listening to, and I want to throw up in my mouth, but I enjoy just for educational purposes so we could educate one another, listen to Rodney Harrison, listen to people like Chief Corey, because here's another cuck white chief. Chief Corey never spoke out about the atrocities, but when we hear them speak, we actually get a lot of information. And to me, what he said there was, we calculated and we got the veteran apparatus out, and it's more concerned about the poor, underrepresented black kid to make sure that he wants to become a cop, because make sure that he has an affinity. And the deflection was, well, yeah, morale is so low, but they haven't had a contract in 7 years and they're making less money. So that was the deflection right there. The deflection from the reality is that there's moving out the alpha white males, moving out the critical thinkers, getting those that are compliant, and getting those that are underrepresented or those of color from black neighborhoods. So there, right there is another push another Tanya Meisenholder push, another push for diversity or DEI. And again, done by a black chief. Former Commissioner Dermot Shea gobbled it up, and so did Corey. So did John Schell. I could give you one chief after another. And Mike LaPetri, who's there right now as the chief of department, he follows the same suit.
Yeah. And it's also to get people who are more conducive to this agenda, to getting this agenda accomplished.
But here's the thing that it actually proves is it proves that you have to have this agenda. You have to have this progressive woke agenda to be in NYPD leadership. Because you heard what Corey said there. He basically said, they said, why is there an exodus in the police department? He's like, nah, don't worry about that. Because we're just worrying about, hiring in the black community and the challenges we face in the black community. Why are you having problems recruiting from kids from Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island, middle-class working families, white kids? Why are you having a problem in the Hispanic community? Why are you having problems there? Oh, no, we're not concerned about that because our agenda is a diversity, equity, inclusion agenda. It's a Marxist ideology. We're looking to upend this. We're looking to get the knuckle draggers out of policing. We're looking to get, the people with different morals in there, different understanding. And honestly, like it's disgusting to hear. And he was the chief of department too, right at the height of all that stuff, said absolutely nothing about the vaccine mandate. Absolutely nothing. It was disgusting. And now he writes articles about the exodus, and I've commented on some of his articles. And I don't regret anything I've said in the past or going forward. I think you guys are all self-neutered cowards. I was out. I forget where I was out. I think I was at the Marina Cafe like a year or two ago, and he comes walking in, and I could see the disgust on his face when he sees me like sitting there eating. And I just want like, you're disgusted about me? Like, do you know the disgust I have about you? You know what I mean? It's like it's a joke. Like you could be disgusted because the truth, you guys don't want the truth coming out. But has progressive ideology infected NYPD leadership? Yeah, 13 years. It's rife. It's still in there, and it includes the retired guys. I'm sorry, everybody's just trying to get back on the train. Everybody's trying to get not everybody, the overwhelming majority, but NYPD leadership as a whole. It proves it right there. That's it. Like there's nothing you could say. It's like one after the other after the other. They all bought into this diversity, equity, inclusion. They all bought into this Marxist agenda. They all bought into less police, less prosecution, less people in jail, less cops, less enforcement. They all believe it, and you have to, or else you don't rise to the top. Like I said, to rise to the top today, it's not the cream that's rising to the top. It's the absolute shit at the bottom with no spine, no balls, no morals, no leadership ability. Followers get promoted in the NYPD discretionarily. And that's what they are. 13 years of followers. It's disgraceful. We've done more damage to law enforcement in the NYPD than any other organization in policing. We've literally upended it. We've embarrassed the profession. We've made policing worse in the last 13 years than better.
You know what, Marlon, I just want to say kudos to you, brother. You really read between the lines. And I the more that we're talking about this, and I do believe that a lot of these chiefs, and most of them play pretend, like people like Rodney Harrison and John Schell, we're talking about people that had 30 some odd years in the police department, and they came from a different era and transitioned to this woke ideology that was infected. They had to play this role. But the more that we have this conversation and talk about it, Marlon, I'm starting to think that some of the young chiefs or some of the young executives, they might actually believe it. They might actually be brainwashed and actually live it. And the reason why I say that is because we're talking about this, and it hit me. I'm saying, wow. Former Mayor Bill de Blasio took office in 2014. So it's now almost 13 years into this woke ideology for New York City. And even if we stem from talking about Obama, how a lot of that infected policing, on a state level and local municipalities from the federal level, that is part of it also. So I think with that conversation, there may be some young black men who had 4 or 5 years on the job before former Mayor Bill de Blasio came in, and now have predominantly been policing under this woke ideology, and it might have been brainwashed and infected them to the point where they believe it. So I think that's a great assessment, Marlon. I just want to, say hats off to you, brother. And I think that you've read between the lines on this. And I think that ultimately we've identified what I think some of the chiefs that we spoke about today, I believe they are playing pretend. But I think when we talk about some of those young executives that are rising through the ranks or climbing that ladder right now by rocket fuel, I think they have gobbled up. And I do believe that some of them believe, even if they're not racist or biased, but believe it's our turn because it's been so much infected and injected into their minds that they're starting to believe it. Because look, here we are sitting here for almost 2 hours, and I'm saying to myself, wow, I've had 2 hours to think about this. There is some prudence to this. So with that being said, I think you're spot on, brother.
Yeah, I think it's dangerous that these guys are so they believe in this progressivism so much. I think it's dangerous because you look back on 2020 and 2020 and a little bit before that, say 2016 to 2020, and at the height of that progressive hysteria, where they would get into fits of rage if if you didn't call them by their pronouns. We're talking about like in just in general in society, how a lot of progressives would get into these hysterical fits if you don't call them their pronouns, you disrespect any one of the parts of progressivism, and how dangerous that is when you have people coming in the police department who believe that stuff, who've internalized that stuff. Here's an example why I believe it's dangerous. Wait, let me put this up for a second, John. So what you're looking at is, for those of you guys listening, I'm also showing a clip from the woke room. Okay. And I put this up on Twitter also, but for those of you who don't have Twitter, I'm going to play it right now. So keep in mind, this is in 2020, right? This is around May 31st. May 31st, it could also be June 1st of 2020. But what do we know was happening around that time? This was the height of the Summer of Love, where Manhattan and a lot of other big blue cities were being, there were large-scale riots and looting there. And in Manhattan, this was happening all over Lower Manhattan, okay? And yet, this was Rodney's concern, okay?
So Rudy, it's funny. Each person, depending on who's in a leadership position in law enforcement, they have certain things that bother them, right? When it comes to discipline, that's not that serious, or something that Tanya just shared, which is she was very, very passionate, and that should be extremely important. And I'm going to share a story with you. Tanya just shared a story. When you're in the room, and be it in headquarters of One Police Plaza or any other room where leadership people are making decisions, you got to hear how certain things that happen are not that serious to one group, but maybe serious to another. So where am I going with this? I remember there was a situation where a cop, actually two cops, put up one of these racial signs. It's something with the 3 fingers or something like this, or whatever the case may be. They did it. It went viral on social media, and everybody was in an uproar. And look at the NYPD, they have racist cops and the other. And I'm gonna be very honest with you. When I saw that, I was livid. I was so angry. And now, mind you, I'm sitting in the room with leadership. And believe it or not, I was the only one in the room that was frustrated. Oh, it's no big deal. Looks like it could be an okay sign. Rudy, I swear to God, I was like, I felt like I was in a fucking Twilight Zone.
Right.
To the point where I was like, well, fuck it, I'm going to do the investigation, and I'm going to track these guys down.
What rank were you at that time?
What's that?
What rank were you at that time?
That's a good fucking question. I think I was either the chief of patrol or chief of department. Okay. I was either one of those two positions, but either way, nobody else in the room cared. So, that in essence, accountability also comes in different forms and fashions depending on, is this something that bothers you? Because now if I was the shot caller, which I wasn't, as much as I was the chief, I wasn't the someone that made the ultimate decision, those cops would have been suspended right away. But it was more like, don't worry about it. That was just an okay sign. All right, let's take a look at it, but let's not make it a bigger deal than it has to be.
Yeah.
Dude, so just a little backstory on that whole thing. So there was like this thing where, everything was a dog whistle, right? Everything was a sign of white supremacy, and supposedly the okay sign was a sign of white supremacy. Working out's a sign of white supremacy. Being on time to work is a sign of white supremacy. The okay sign was a sign of white supremacy. So what happened is I think it was Cop Watch. I might have been wrong about it, but Cop Watch takes a video of a cop telling his partner, "Okay, are you good?" And then so that enraged Rodney Harrison that a cop said, "Okay," because this is supposedly a dog whistle or a sign of white supremacy. Like, these are the guys leading the NYPD. Again, I don't know his education level. I'm sure he's highly educated. Again, I'm going to say I backpedal everything I say. I think that these guys are idiots. I swear. I think their intelligence level versus their education level, it's two different things. I don't think just because you went to school that you're an intelligent person, because I know plenty of people with master's degrees. I know plenty of people that have the doctorates in criminal justice, and they're absolute idiots. They have zero common sense. They can't differentiate anything. They don't know what the hell's happening. They don't know how to think around things. They can't debate points. They could process the information that they're given, and they could spew it back out. That does not equal intelligence to me. That equals a follower, not a leader. And so, again, I don't know their education level. I will assume they're a highly educated people, but you have to be a moron to buy into this, that, oh, a white cop did this, and I'm going to rush out there and investigate these guys to fire them for doing a sign that everybody does. So if tomorrow the woke, the progressives and the socialists say that giving the thumbs up is a sign of white supremacy, then that means that any white cop that gives a thumbs up, it's a sign of white supremacy. Were we investigating black cops for doing the okay? Were you investigating Hispanic cops for doing the okay? Were you investigating Jewish cops for doing the okay? Like, no. So what are we talking about here? It's just stupid as shit. These guys are morons. I agree with you, Marlon. I know you didn't say it. I know you said that they've been infected in their culture when we talk about black chiefs, that they've been infected with their culture. I'm going to say they're politically illiterate. That's the problem. And today in law enforcement, you should not be a politically illiterate individual. If you are politically illiterate, not only do you have no business in law enforcement leadership, you have no business in law enforcement, because you are a useful idiot. You are a pawn. You could be used like an SS officer in the Nazi regime. Like, these people are politically illiterate and unintelligent individuals. I am so not impressed. So not impressed.
But John, you're right. They're politically illiterate. However, I think they're highly aware of what they're doing. They're aware that they're on the interview stage, and they're virtue signaling. I think Rodney Harrison is constantly doing it. I don't know if he's aware that he's virtue signaling, but he's doing it. He's aware of what he's doing. He knows damn well that most of the policies that he supports are bad policing, but he does it anyway because those nice guys don't challenge, and they also want to pave the way for themselves and pave the way for their offspring. So they must have thought I was a racist cop too, because I always had signs. I still do. It's part of who I am. When I was working with my cops, if I had someone in cuffs, or if they're running down, I always gave them, "Yo, we're good," or a thumbs up, or or put my finger up. I always gave signs. Especially in New York City, I would always teach my guys, use signs. We're working together. It's loud. I don't want things to be misinterpreted or miscommunicated. We would constantly use signs. So they must have thought we're racist also. And I think that's complete virtual signaling. Especially, I think this podcast itself, I think the risk room is virtual signaling. I think it's his interview stage, always looking for the next opportunity, whether it's Zohran Mamdani or the next mayor that's in office. And I think that's the whole purpose of the podcast. I don't think so for Rudy Hall. I think Rudy Hall is just having fun, and I I do think he has woke progressive ideology, but he sure does call Rodney Harrison out on his bullshit numerous times. But I think Rodney Harrison, for him, this podcast is a constant interview stage of virtual signaling. Like, hey, here I am. I'm here for the black community. Hey, the OK sign, that was racist and white supremacy during BLM. Want to let you know that's what I thought back then. You know, I thought Daniel Pantaleo should be terminated because his adversary died. I was lucky that mine didn't. So I just think it's constant virtue signaling. I think the podcast itself is an interview stage. And yes, I think there's a far difference and a dichotomy between being educated and intelligent, right? Because you can be educated, train yourself to have based information on facts, but that doesn't mean that measures intelligence. And that's why I often say, just because someone has a college degree, does it give a good metric, a measure of intelligence? I know many people, including you, John, who don't have a college degree, that are super intelligent, self-educated, take the time out, very knowledgeable. I have a college degree, and I don't think it's.
I have an associate's degree, Eric. So I just want to let you know that.
Oh, I apologize.
So I just want to let you know that.
I actually apologize on that because I could have sworn you told me you didn't have a degree.
I have an associate's. I don't have a bachelor's.
So you have associates. So you do have a degree. But I think that, so kudos to you. And I know numerous people, I work in the trades, and I know a lot of guys in the trades who don't have degrees, and they're super intelligent. I mean, actually very intelligent. And so ultimately, it's not a metric measure. Many people who are college educated are intelligent. Some are. But it shows more dedication and motivation. But I do think, going back to what I said, I think the Risk Room, the podcast in itself, is 100% virtual signaling. And I think it's a constant interview stage. And I think that Rodney Harrison, that's what the benefit out of that podcast is. I don't hear him talking about anything that is for good policing. I haven't heard him talk about intrusive policing. I haven't heard him talk about broken windows or any type of proactive policing. Instead, I've heard him get emotionally driven by the OK sign, virtual signaling. Just absolutely disgusting. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's one of the dumbest things I've ever seen, And the more these guys go on these podcasts or radio, is the more I realize how dumb they actually are. We have a generation of executive leadership who are stupid, and I think in years prior, very few of them would have ended up in those positions. I mean, just think of it. You had this going on in the city, right? You had this going on in the city, and yet you're ready to devote resources to finding cops who made the OK sign. Really? That's your priorities, right? I mean, like, how can I look at you as having any sort of any sort of competency after you said that, right? And again, the OK sign has been used many times before. Okay, many times before. So these guys, all these rappers who use it, all these celebrities, all the people who use it, we're all racist now for using it. And just think of it. It's the OK sign then, but what else will it be in the future? If Rodney were to come back on, what is it going to be? Are we going to be racist if you don't have a pronoun in front of your name? Is it going to be insulting if you don't have a pronoun in front of your name that Rodney's going to he's going to send a team of inspections to go find you now? Yeah, it's absurd, Yeah.
I'm still shocked that the NYPD didn't do that, by the way. I'm still shocked that they didn't mandate that you put your pronouns in it. That's how woke of an organization it is. That's how much a leadership it is. And, and look, someone said here, like, explain woke to me. And you know what? I hate even using that term because I don't think that progressives are actually awoken to anything. I think that, like, we're more woke on this podcast than anybody. We're awoken to what's going on in the world. We have a high level view of what's happening in the world. We could discuss what's happening in the world. I think it's more like you're asleep. You're sleepwalking. You're just going through the motions of what you're told. Yeah. Oh, he did the OK sign. Oh, they're burning down the city. Oh, okay. Let's devote all our resources and time to the OK sign. I'll even do this myself. Like, I think they're asleep. I think politically illiterate. And then another example of it, I saw Corey Pegues. I saw him celebrating, and I don't know if you guys want to finish on this topic or not, but like, I saw him celebrating the.
I got more to say on this.
Yeah. So, but whatever. You say what you're going to say after. But like, I saw him celebrating the appointment of the CCRB, the new head of the CCRB, and that is a ridiculous appointment. And anybody celebrating her, I'll show you that picture. You are a moron. I'm sorry. Like, you're either celebrating her because she's black. You're either only celebrating her because she's a blackface. You're not celebrating her to give a fair and proper judgment on New York City police officers. You're not celebrating her coming in and fixing the NYPD. That's for sure. And if that's why you're celebrating her, you're a moron. I'm sorry.
So Marlon and I are both shaking our heads, and I'm wondering if you're thinking the same thing. I'm thinking Marlon. So I don't think they're asleep. So I think they are woke, and I think they are woke into the fact that there's opportunity. And that's why I said, going back before, that for me, my perception is that Rodney Harrison is on the interview stage, and that the podcast is an opportunity to keep himself relevant and keep himself kind of like almost like just leaving that carrot out there, or letting people know, like, hey, I'm still here. Here's Rodney. If you have an opportunity to watch me, I mean, lucky for the Finest Unfiltered, they got themselves a couple more views right now. But I think they're hoping that it grows so that Rodney Harrison's face and his voice is still out there, and he's giving out these woke policies, letting his woke masters such as Zohran Mamdani and the other leftist politicians out there know that, hey, I'm available. I mean, that's the way I see it. So I don't think that they're asleep, that they're kind of zombies going through the motions. I think they're highly aware of what they're doing, which is why I think they're playing pretend. In comparison to what I said before, I after thinking about it, I think that some of the young men and women that are moving up through the ranks at this point have been infected to the point they're brainwashed. But I think for Rodney Harrison, it's all calculated. I think he clearly knows what he's doing. I don't think he's asleep. I think they're aware of what they're doing. I think because they make, in my opinion, they kind of, John, if you think about it, right, they make a cognizant effort to put an emphasis, and when you watch these small podcasts, that they really demonstrate and are very illicit and explicitive on those leftist policies. Because even if they felt that was good policing, at some point, something about intrusive police work or that style of police work, broken windows or proactive police work, will come up in conversation. But we really don't hear too much of that. So I really think it's calculated, and I think that they're highly aware of what they're doing. I agree they're, as you say, politically illiterate. I don't think they really understand the politics of it, but they do think they understand opportunity. And that's one thing I learned. I thought going back in time, I didn't think very highly of former Chief Resnick. And here's someone who had to have that prestige of being called chief in retirement. I thought he was actually a bumbling idiot, to be honest. But what he knew, just as every one of these other chiefs, he knew when he came to BMOC, for any active retired cops, you know what this is, or anybody just watching, it was basic modular officer course when you're getting promoted to sergeant or lieutenant. And he would always come and put up his pension statement and tell everybody what he could earn. So these guys, even though they're not intelligent, they know what opportunity is out there for them. They know how much money they can make. They know how much connections they can make. They know all about networking. These guys are bumbling idiots, but they're damn good at networking. They're networking by being cucks, and it works for them. I think they found a way to justify it to themselves. I think it's absolutely disgusting. Not something we would partake in. But for them, ultimately, prestige and opportunity and those tangible items that you could get, I think are far more important to them than anything else.
Yeah, I hear you, bro, but I just think that, I mean, to some extent they both do that. I mean, every chief does that, but I just think that the black chiefs have internalized a lot of it, whereas the white chiefs, again, it's survival and opportunism, and they're in a progressive system, and the system doesn't. I mean, when was the last? I mean, that they're in a progressive system, and the system wants people at the top who are marginalized, right? Historically marginalized, right? And for them, it's I think it's their way of saying, hey, look at me, I'm one of you. Don't eat me. Go after the next guy. And it happens to reward them also in with jobs in Wall Street and the connections that the progressive industrial complex have. But I'm simply saying, when he goes home, Does he believe any of this crap? I doubt it. I doubt it. Okay. Whereas I think Rodney believes it. Okay. He believes the racism part. Okay. Now I think they don't care about the sexism bullshit. Okay. Because if he did, he would have spoken up about what Madry was doing, or done something when he was the chief of department. And there's a part in the interview where he's virtue signaling all about that. He gets called out. Before the part specifically where he virtue signals about sexual harassment, but he does that at the end of it. And I'm watching it and I'm thinking, well, where were you when Madry was doing his thing, and why didn't you say that was inappropriate and cut the BS off? Because he doesn't really believe it. But look at him passionately talk about guys making the okay sign. He was ready to. You can tell that enraged him, right? So it's I think for the White Chiefs, it's a matter of not being eaten by the bear. You don't want a bear to eat you, so you gotta do what you can to stay alive. Stay alive for the next rank, next promotion.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. But I think, again, however you wrap it up, it doesn't really matter how they feel at home. It's what they say publicly and what they do publicly. And, it doesn't really matter. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter to me at the end of the day. When you look at the NYPD, they're absolutely progressive. They're the most woke organization in law enforcement, and they've done the most harm to the reputation of law enforcement nationally and worldwide than when they came, than prior to 2020 and prior to 2018 when they were supposedly working on improving community relations. I think they've made community relations so much worse. We can see that with the number of assaults that have risen on police officers. We can see that with the lack of respect towards police officers. And, I think that the problem is we have morons running law enforcement in these big blue Democrat-run cities. And, like I said, the people that go to the top, they're spineless, they're chameleons, they have no balls, they have no morals, they have no integrity. And to me, I think that if you're in law enforcement, even at the bottom rung of law enforcement, integrity should be a non-negotiable for you. And it's not only is it a non-negotiable, not only is it not a non-negotiable in leadership, especially in the NYPD, if you have it, you will not be in an NYPD leadership. So I think that's that's it. Like, has it infected the NYPD? Yeah. It's and by the way, I think we're headed for a really bad time. I think that, what you saw under the Adams administration, and again, I'll say under the Adams administration, black chiefs were handed, they were promoted undeservingly. They were rushed through the top, rushed through the ranks. Black detectives promoted to deputy commissioner, undeservingly handing positions. They not only embarrassed themselves, they embarrassed the NYPD, they embarrassed the whole profession. And nobody here has the balls enough to say exactly what happened. And then all the mistakes that were made under that administration, we're seeing continue to occur and double down under the Mandani administration. And all the people that were complaining about the Adams administration are now celebrating under the Mandani administration. So to me, I think it's disgraceful. Honestly, I think it's absolutely disgraceful. And I really got nothing else more to say about that.
Hey, brother, I just want to say, man, I'm living it right now because I'm traveling the entire country and I travel the world. And they did embarrass the department because there was a time, like I said, I can make the comparison. 2005, as a rookie, I went down to New Orleans with Hurricane Katrina and support the efforts there. And I was there for about 3 weeks. And we were rock stars to every police department throughout the country. Rock stars. I mean, I felt I was treated better there than actually in New York. I mean, the way that people looked at us and the how they idolized us was beyond what I ever expected. Especially I was a rookie. I had close to 2 years on the job, not even a full 2 years yet. I was still on probation. And the way they idolized us throughout the country was really impressive. And now here I am in retirement, traveling, and I almost get like the stink eye. I don't really tell people often I'm a cop. Most people wouldn't know. I don't have any police paraphernalia. But obviously, people always, oh, where are you from? New York. Oh, what are you doing here? I'm retired. And I'm just enjoying my adventure. And right away, people, oh, you're retired young. What are you, a firefighter, a cop? They kind of figure it out. So I go, yeah, I retired from the NYPD. And then a lot of times the reaction, John Marlon, is like, wow. It's like, what is going on in that city, man? It's like, and everybody has social media. They watch their videos and like, what's going on there? So I have a question for both of you guys, John and Marlon. I'm just curious, right? Because so people often contact me like, oh man, you guys never stop with DEI. You always talk about DEI. I'm like, well, because it's connected. It has a nexus to everything we talk about. Do you think without DEI that the leftists could have infected the NYPD leadership? And why? Because I think DEI is so important that we speak about it because it's ultimately at the root of the infection.
Do you want to go first? Or you want me to go?
I guess I'll go. That's a great question. I think if I had to think about this right now, I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say DEI is the thing about DEI, and I've said before about progressivism too, because DEI is just an extension of progressivism. It's a way of emotionally manipulating us into accepting mediocrity, right? You accept mediocrity in these chiefs because look, they're black. Blacks have been historically marginalized. You're racist. What? You don't want the department to be diversified now? You're racist. You're racist. Most people, who wants to be called a racist? Who wants to be thought of as a racist? Nobody. So they have lowered standards and inadequate chiefs who were rocket fueled up to these ranks when they were unprepared for it and inadequate to do the job. Look at every time Tanya talked. Okay, come on. But because of DEI, they get to now put up a shield in front of them and deflect every criticism as you being racist because blacks now have the opportunity that they didn't in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think the opposite. I think that I think DEI was the vehicle in order to bring all of these changes into effect. Like the same way, the mandate.
That's the same thing we're saying, John.
Well, you said no.
No. If it was misconstrued, I'm saying that DEI allowed them to bring these things forth because it put a empathetic face on it and emotionally manipulated us into accepting more progressivism in society and more inadequate chiefs at the top.
Yeah, so I'm saying that, yeah, absolutely. Like that you couldn't have done it without having DEI. Like you needed that as the vehicle, and it gave them not only the face of it, it gave them, in their opinion, which I'll disagree with, the legal standing to do so. And so what happened is they're like, no, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with discriminating against whites because, it's part of the DEI agenda. DEI is everywhere. We have an office of diversity, equity, inclusion, and agenda. Like this is what we do. And it gave everyone the cover to move all of these policies in, which basically, again, and I don't call it a Marxist agenda because I'm intentionally calling it a Marxist agenda because it is a Marxist agenda. It's meant to bring the system down. They want to bring down not only the policing, they want to bring down our system of government. And they're using diversity, equity, and inclusion to do it. When you appoint a chief who's unqualified and inexperienced, when you put people like that, or a police commissioner or whatever, like the top of these organizations, a fire commissioner, schools, what happens? You see incompetence at the highest levels, right? And what happens? It trickles down. What do? They make appointments, they make policies, more incompetence, more incompetence, more incompetence, more incompetence. Now you do it on an organization like law enforcement, the most criticized profession in the entire world, yet it still remains the least understood profession in the entire world. And you bring in all of this incompetence. And so what do you do to your supporters of your organization? They even start saying, what the hell is happening here? They start to align with defund the NYPD, get rid of law enforcement. Yeah, you know what? These guys do have too much power. Yeah, cops are corrupt. How? If it wasn't for diversity and equity inclusion has brought more corruption into the NYPD than the last 30 years. Like, you know, I thought for the most part, from the early 2000s up until the de Blasio administration comes in, corruption was kind of like either really hidden. It was being done by some one individual officer. It was not systemic. It was really done at the bottom ranks until you have this diversity, equity, inclusion agenda. And what you see is these incompetent, low integrity individuals, these unintelligent, low integrity individuals, they have really brought in egregious corruption at the top levels. I'm not kidding. They've brought us back to 1845. Prior to 1845, 1849, every single thing in the Lexow committee occurred again in 2022, 2023, 2024 under Eric Adams. And I got news for you. It's going to get a lot worse under Mondani, because not only is he turning a blind eye to everything that happened, he's doubling down on everything that Adams did. And I'm sick of the bullshit about Tish. Honestly, she's not an effective leader. She's not leading. She's being dragged around by her tail. It's unbelievable to watch, man. I'm not even joking. I don't give a shit how this portrays me politically, how it portrays how people care about me or think about me in the future. I'm not worried about it. I'm going to call out the bullshit when I see it from a poor person, when I see it from someone that's appointed to any agency, or somebody that's been handed the keys to the kingdom because they're a billionaire heiress and has a great large control over the media. So I really don't care. It's the damn truth. Corruption is going to get worse. That was the first wave of it under Eric Adams. It's going to get a lot worse because there's nothing that has changed. It's actually gotten worse. The systems remain in place. There's zero accountability at the top. You see that with the appointment of Terrell Anderson to chief. Zero accountability at the top. Zero.
First of all, I think the two of you answered beautifully. I think it's spot on. And I think that ultimately for me, I think that policing is like a compass. That's what I think. It's like a compass, and it should be pointed to public safety, and that's it. Shouldn't be any politics in there. Just pointed to public safety. But ultimately, I think DEI is the magnet that gets the compass to point to something else. Like, oh, no, point over here. All the virtual saying, no, you got to look over here. You got to look over here. So I think ultimately, I think you're absolutely right. And so you need, in policing and politics, you need tangibles and intangibles, right? And those tangibles, exactly what you said, John. DEI gave out those legitimate policies that are legalized but discriminatory at the same time, which was why I thought it was so important. And I'll bring that memo up again. In that memo from former Mayor Bill de Blasio from the executive order, it's a legal policy, right? Hey, we just want to interview one person that is not that is not the majority race, someone that's underrepresented, just an interview, and pick the qualified person. So it's a legal, tangible document, but yet it's discriminatory at the same time. So I think ultimately, I think we all agree, and that's why I think it was an important question. I think without DEI, it was impossible. And then, and that's why people normally, they constantly contact me. I'm sure the same thing with you, John and Marlon, is, oh, you guys don't stop talking about DEI. Everything's DEI this, DEI that. I remember when we were having some arguments with Joel and Sal, and we were having that argument. Oh, you guys say everything, and Eric Sanders, you guys say everything's DEI, because it is. All these woke policies, all this infection points back to DEI. So ultimately, as I said, if you looked at a compass for policing, it should just point to public safety. Rodney Harrison should be talking about public safety. John Schell, John, you, me, anyone that's in policing. But instead, that compass points somewhere else because it's all about politics.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Labro says that my political career is dead on arrival. Forget about it. So, Labro, I just want to let you know that if I decided to unseat Frank Morano or David Carr's thing, or I wanted David Carr's seat, I win hands down. If I wanted to unseat Mike Riley or Tanusis, I win hands down. I have all the signatures. I get all the signatures. I have all the grassroots supports. I have a team of hundreds of people that would go out there and advocate for me. So I don't think so. Maybe I won't win the seat of the mayor, but you know, even if I was Nicole Maliotakis and I had any type of political aspirations, I would be kind of worried. But I don't have those political aspirations, so I don't think anybody has to worry. You know, I like doing what I'm doing. So, but just so we're aware. So I just want to let you know that, Labro. But we're running out of time here. So before we do, I think everybody should meet the new head of CCRB. This is Zohran Mondani's head of CCRB. Here she is. Meet her. I don't want to put words in her mouth. Let her speak for herself.
In my opinion, not defund the police, because, you know, we know that just sets up all bells and whistles and has people saying, oh, you know, like they don't want any policing, you know, you can't be with them. Budget justice, you know, disinvest, reinvest in communities. In my opinion.
So it's funny too, because this interview is in 2020. And so she's sitting there. Oliver Rice is right here. That's Oliver Rice. She was the chair of CCRB. This interview is amazing to watch because they're both anti-police. They both believe in the defund the movement. What they said is they want to word it differently. So Oliver Rice, no longer the chair of CCRB. Now we move this girl here. She is, let me give you her full name. Her full name is Jennifer Jones Austin. She appears to me to be a complete Reverend Al Sharpton National Action Network acolyte. Corey Pegues was cheering her appointment on. And you heard what she said there. She doesn't want to say defund the police. She wants to say reinvest the money or whatever, or disinvest. So disinvest the police instead of defund the police. What she's ultimately saying is defund the police. And they go in there, and what you hear is this really anti-police spin where they want to move away from policing. And guess what they want to do? Go towards a more community-based approach, a less interactions, less enforcement, less incarcerations, a decarceral approach. It's the same thing. There's no difference between this girl, Oliver Rice, or NYPD chief. They're exactly the same. The only difference, NYPD chief wears the uniform and he pretends that they're one of you, and they pretend that they believe in public safety when the actual reality is they believe in what they're saying.
Yeah, Joe Fox, he was part of CCRB. He was a nice guy. He was no different than disinvesting or reinvesting or saying anything that Oliver Rice said, because he showed that he was anti his own organization, as he had predominantly found the cops at guilt, found them substantiated in their complaints. Joe Fox, the nice guy who's so beloved by the NYPD, who takes pictures with cops, takes pictures because he loves them so much. This is just complete. The more and more that we talk about this, we prove that the nomenclature and the personnel of the CCRB have a complete bias and disdain for the police. How could they give a fair assessment and do any investigative process when they already have their minds tainted and they're completely anti-police? We've heard Oliver Rice testify that they investigate on behalf of the desires and emotions of the complainant, not both sides, and take the totality of circumstances. Here you are, you got much of the same. And I can't believe we have people like Corey Pegues and others actually cheering this on. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it's really disappointing, but not surprising.
Yeah, the black community loves self-destruction, Eric. The American black community loves self-destruction. That's why you have communities like Baltimore or Detroit and being what they are, and other black communities being what they are for like generations on top of generations now. Okay, you've accepted mediocrity as being because it has a black face on it. Okay, it's good. Mediocrity is good. It has a black face on it, so we can accept that. Once again, a reminder to those of you watching that the things that those two women are pushing are the things being implemented by NGOs like the Crime Lab. Okay, all of their initiatives correspond to all the BS that these women are talking about. So when we say it's a Marxist takeover, you know, we're showing you how the rhetoric intersects with policy, and now it's being pushed out to multiple departments across the country. Because again, different agencies are sending their people over here to get brainwashed by this moron over here. Okay.
Yeah. Spot on, brother. Well said, man. Well said.
Yeah. It's all the same grift. Just keeps going. Yeah, I think the whole thing's funny. I mean, I think it just sums up. It's CCRB. I would expect for those of you, CCRB has been kind of quiet. I would expect that to change real rapidly. I would expect you're going to see a lot of cases being brought into the media. I would see that a lot of cops are going to end up face of the media, and they're going to be calling for termination. And I think in this administration, you're going to start to see a lot of terminations from the CCRB.
Yep.
Your unions all put out weak statements about this, haven't said a word. You know, they talk about, there was a big push from Scott Monroe and the PBA about how they had these biased investigators on the force, how they made statements about defunding the police. And they put those statements out immediately after I put that video out, and I commented on it. They about 2 hours after I did that, because they were like, oh boy, we better get in front of this. So they ultimately put very, very weak statements out there, and it contradicts every single thing that they said about those biased investigators, because what you just saw is the appointment of the head of CCRB is a person who is biased and who supported defund the police movement. So you would think that their comment would have been in opposition to her appointment, but instead it wasn't. It was more of a welcoming. We're looking forward to working with you. It was a grift, and it shows that Pat Hendry and Scott Monroe and the rest of them in union leadership work for the city of New York. They're just as woke as your leadership. Not at home, because I think that they're MAGA in the sheets, 100%, but they're definitely woke out here in the streets. And they're woke, they're weak, and they're inept at really standing up for rank and file officers. And you're going to get thrown to the wolves. You're going to call your union, and they ain't going to do shit for you. So I just want to let you guys know. So,
yeah. Oh, you want to go, Eric?
Yeah, sure. I mean, listen, Jennifer Jones Austin, she was CEO of Protest Welfare Organization, where she was supposed to oversee racial inequality and disparities. So, I mean, and poverty tied to lower income Black communities. So I already have we already have an idea of where this is going. I mean, if she basically told you disinvest or whatever word salad you want to use, defund the police. She's already telling you she has an anti and biased disdain for the police. How can we support this person to be the investigative head body for the Civilian Complaint Review Board, which has so much power and oversight over the NYPD as an external factor, yet doing internal investigations of the NYPD? Absolutely ridiculous. The cops don't have a fair shake. So I just want to remind the cops out there, you can thank who we put up here earlier, who also rubber stamped the disciplinary matrix, former Commissioner Dermot Shea, who just gave ultimate gifts to the NYPD, disbanded anti-crime, apologized for the NYPD being racist, and also signed off along with the city council the disciplinary matrix, which you should be facing right now. And it's important to note that the Civilian Complaint Review Board creates their own algorithm. And what they do is they keep track of complaints or any interaction with the CCRB, anything on their intake desk to utilize as aggravating factors. So if you're facing a civilian complaint right now, and this is now the head, you need to take a look at that disciplinary matrix. It's very important because they will utilize any discipline that you have within a 3-year period, includes CCRB or any discipline, can be used as an aggravating factor, along with the numerous factors they could use against you. So if you're tier 3 in general population, you're out there doing police work. And if you're out there doing police work in the way that you should, you are peppered up with civilian complaints. There's no doubt about it. So my hat is off to you if you're out there on the job right now in this environment. God bless you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Am I being conspiratorial in thinking that that those more terminations are on the way and more CCRBs are on the way? Because I heard this from Tanya Meisenholder over here, and I just thought that they're going to have to speed up this 30 for 30 initiative, because this listen to what she says. Her question is basically, how does she feel about the current representation of women in the police department?
Yes, but no, I don't think we're there yet. No.
I think
it's gotten better. Well, one, the numbers have increased over the course of time. We're still hitting around 14%, but on average, across the U.S., women make up about 20% of recruit classes. So there's some progress, albeit very, very small in terms of representation.
Yeah. Yeah. So remember the 30 for 30 agenda was supposed to be by 2030. So they're well behind it now. And these people are morons because, again, policing and law enforcement has always been a primarily male dominated industry, profession, right? It's primarily masculine male profession. Okay. So you're actually fighting human nature right there, but they don't care. Okay, they're gonna keep trying, and they're gonna keep trying to push their agenda one way or the other, even if it means now, since they're not getting as much females into the police department as they like, even after lowering the standards, how are they gonna accomplish that 30%? Well, by getting rid of more of you guys. Okay, so call me conspiracist all you want, but I just think that the more terminations are on the way, more CCRBs are on the way, and they need to hurry up because 2030 will just be 3.5 years away from now.
That's exactly what it is, dude. And that's why I'm saying that. Like they're pushing that. And again, I'm the only person in the country that has a lawsuit against the 30 for 30 movement. And there's been zero push from any of the law enforcement supporters, any law enforcement magazines. No one has covered this. No one has reported on it. This administration hasn't done anything to back my lawsuit. All my claims are valid. Literally said every single thing was set out publicly. We have discovery from other cases that prove exactly what I'm saying, that movement's discriminatory and that the vaccine mandate was done to push males, Christians out of the New York City Police Department. And it was done to not only further the diversity agenda, but to further the 30 for 30 movement. And no one has moved on my lawsuit. It's just sitting there. No one will say a word about it. No advocacy groups, no law enforcement across this country, no unions, no nothing. And that is detrimental because here's the bottom line. Law enforcement is a masculine profession. The NYPD, however, is trying to upend it along with a lot of other law enforcement agencies in this country, and they're trying to change it into a feminine profession. And it's not, and it'll never be. And in a feminine state, it will be a completely inept and ineffective public safety apparatus. And yet that's what they want because they want less police.
Well, I think also with this, we proved that DEI is the infection. We talked about could woke progressive policing and movement towards defund the police or disinvest or whatever terminology, word salad they want to use, would not be possible without DEI. And the 30 by 30 movement is DEI. And I do believe that the Civilian Complaint Review Board, with their bias and disdain, will use any vehicle or any tool weaponized towards the police department to remove alpha white males. How do I know this? Because I was targeted by an overzealous Civilian Complaint Review Board going back as far from 2018 to 2022 until my retirement. And so I know, in fact, and even to correspond with that, at the time, the Lieutenants Benevolent Association started to take each complaint with data to determine if white males were being discriminated against. And ultimately, I don't know where that data is. I don't think Lou Turk ever had the balls to turn that data in, because that data would show that white males in supervisory ranks were completely targeted by an overzealous Civilian Complaint Review Board. So there's no doubt in my mind that the Civilian Complaint Review Board is weaponized at this point to remove the sign of alpha white males. And I think that was also the start and part of the 30 for 30 movement also. And in order to have a so-called diverse police department, which includes having the 30 by 30 movement, you have to discriminate against a particular group to actually get those byproduct outcomes that are desired. And the byproduct outcome is 30% females by 2030. And the only way to get to that point is to try to remove and eradicate alpha white males or any alpha males with that in the law enforcement profession, especially the NYPD. Why? Because not only are we not getting recruitment, we're also having a mass exodus. And that mass exodus has to be done with the alpha white males to get to that 30 by 30 objective. So ultimately, DEI is so important. We have to constantly talk about it because it is hyper-focused when it comes to woke policing, when it comes to these progressive ideas. And the 30 by 30 is a complete progressive movement. Now, I'll say this. I'm not anti-woman. I worked with plenty of women that were great at policing. However, the majority of the profession has to be men. Definitely women play a supportive role. There are fantastic women out there, but ultimately it's a top-heavy male profession. And I think any woman with common sense would admit that it's a top-heavy profession and still should remain a top-heavy male profession because it is necessary to have males on this job. So this idea of 30 for 30, if we're pushing for the most suitable and the most qualified female candidates, God bless. But to push for a specific number is a manufactured and a fictitious idea, and ultimately another woke progressive ideology. It's just completely delusional.
So I'm laughing because there's a portion of an episode on the Woke Room where it's Harrison, Rudy Hall, it's Dr. Tanya Meisenholder, and there was a police inspector. I think she was from Michigan, right? And she was definitely. I don't think that she was woke. I think she was. I actually, I thought like I liked hearing her perspective on a lot of things, right? But like, but at one point Harrison says. And he makes the comparison that because she was a victim of what the inspector says is that she was a victim in her agency of sexual discrimination and sexual harassment, right? And so what Harrison goes on to say is he goes, well, for the inspector, it's not fair because no one's going to really sexually harass Rudy Hall or really discriminate against him or haze him or anything like that because he's 6'6". He's a grown man. He could handle himself where the inspector really can't. And Meisenholder's like, wait a minute. And then she gives him a whole word salad. And then he backpedals the whole thing. I'm not saying that women can't handle themselves. I'm not saying that women, I know women that could beat up men, blah, blah, blah. All the same garbage, right? And it's like, look, I'll agree that there are women out there in policing that are much tougher than a lot of the guys you see in policing today. I'll agree with that. However, policing should be a male-dominated profession. It's a masculine profession. There is a reason for that. It's very dangerous work. It's the same reason that the military is male dominated. It's the same reason that jails are male dominated. It's the same reason that plumbing's male dominated. Construction, we're different. Men and women are different. I hate to break the news. It's biblical. It's not an argument. And I think the whole thing is a joke. Like, yeah, are there good women cops? Yeah, sure. You have a team of women cops on a platoon. That is an awful platoon. I just got to break it to you. Like when you get a violent EDP male 6'6", you got a big problem. You got a real big problem. When you got a sector car that's women and you got a 6'6" EDP there and there's no backups because you're only running through cars, you got a real big problem. Real big problem.
Yeah.
I just want to answer that and say, ultimately, I do think that we live in a patriarch society. It doesn't mean, I don't think it's chauvinistic to say that. It's just the reality, right? I mean, if we look at infrastructure, it's built by men. If you look at most of the stuff, it's built by men. It's just a reality, right? I'm not saying women have to be home and hiding with the children, but there is a legitimate gender roles. And it is a patriarch society that most of the infrastructure and dangerous jobs are dominated by men. And it should be. It should be. And I don't think that's anything sexist by saying that. That's the reality. So this idea that women can handle themselves the same men at the majority level is absolutely ridiculous. It just doesn't meet logic. Now, are there outliers? Yes. But not every female cop on the job is Ronda Rousey. Absolutely not. If Ronda Rousey became a cop today, she would be a complete outlier. But that's not what we're talking about. That is the 0.001% of the population. But when we talk about the average woman, it's absolutely, we wouldn't expect a woman to be in the boxing ring with Mike Tyson or another man. And ultimately, as a police officer, you don't get to pick who your adversary might be for that day. You don't know what you're walking into. And when you go into a dangerous job, Your adversary could be a 6'6" male, could be a 7'2" male. It could be two males hopped on steroids. You don't know what that is. And to expect women to go into that on the majority level is absolutely ridiculous. Now, for Rudy to back up on that, it's absolutely ridiculous. I would defend that any day. I do not expect women as the majority to play that masculine role. I do expect the women that are on the job, that are outliers, to have those masculine traits. However, I do think ultimately it's more of a supplemental and supportive role within the police department. The majority is men. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. It is a patriarchal society. And the reality is the reason why we have such a safe society as Americans is because men have made this society by force, by serving in time of war. And we have all the rights that we have is because men put their lives on the line and fought for it. And that's the reality is. So it is a patriarchal society. I don't think it's chauvinistic to say that. It's just a reality.
Yeah, keep in mind also that they're busy lowering standards. So, there are some women who could handle themselves, but the problem is there's not enough of them, right? Again, like Eric said, they're outliers. But the problem is now they're lowering standards, so the women who don't even measure up to that are being allowed on the job. And think of what he's saying there, how dangerous that is to those women, that they're putting them in situations where they're going to get hurt, So, but it's important to keep in mind here, right, that these guys know better, okay? But instead, they're gonna brown nose to Meisenholder because Meisenholder she's very influential and she has very wide connections to people in business and academia, and these guys are gonna continue brown nosing people like that because they're always looking for their next gig, and especially in the case of Rodney, he's looking for his next gig, wherever that'll be in whichever progressive blue city out there. And if he speaks out against this, if he tells you what he really thinks about this part, right, he's not going to get to that position. And I said this online that what you're seeing here and what you saw in 2020 is a marriage of financial convenience between the corporatist right? That's we're talking Wall Street, big business, and leftist, Marxist, progressive academia. And because I say this because the groups like the NGO that Corey works for is funded by government and it's funded by Wall Street. And it's comprised of people in law enforcement, like Bratton is on there too. Abbasi is part of that too. And it's also comprised of these leftist women from academia. And they're all in this marriage of convenience that you would think, like, I mean, half of those men do not believe that crap, okay? And yet they're on there working with these leftist women. And this is why I say it's a marriage of convenience. And if Rodney or Rudolph there, Hall is his last name, if they speak up, they're not getting into the big club. They're not getting their next consulting gig, and Rodney definitely won't be getting his next chief gig.
Absolutely. You want to know what's funny? And I don't think I ever brought this up either. And I probably should address this in my lawsuit, and I didn't. Meisenholder's got a husband on the job, right? And he's an NYPD sergeant. Do you know where he went immediately after I was forced out? Do you know where he was assigned immediately after that?
To your job?
Took my spot.
Building maintenance?
Yep. Yeah. Took my spot.
Was he vaccinated?
I mean, I would think somebody, I would think someone that has all the answers, like you're married to someone who has all the answers about law enforcement. You could go out there and police,
Well, you know what that tells you though, John? That tells you that they were looking at you, that they were looking at you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, like I said, if you ever walk around with me, I was a rock star on the job, and everyone will tell you that. I'm in one police plaza. I could go up right now. Wait, forget this podcast. Forget before I ever had a social media influence. You would walk around any building in New York City in the NYPD. You walk around one police plaza with me. Everyone and their mother would come up and shake my hand. This is a great guy. This is a great supervisor. And they all had stories about me. I was very influential. And the fact when I spoke out about it, they got very scared about it. And I didn't advocate right. And I didn't have that community all together. And I didn't have that platform yet. I just had the respect of a lot of people. And that's why they pushed me out, dude. That was 100%. They get this guy out, shut him up immediately. And that's what they did. And they figured, shut me up, and everybody else will fall in line.
That's interesting that Tanya Meisenholder's husband actually took your spot. It's quite interesting. Exactly that. You know, Schofield talks about engaging with less force and having those qualities. You think she would want her, so, you know, especially as influential in Tanya Meisenholder and her police knowledge. You think she would want her husband at the forefront leading the charge. But quite interesting that he took a backseat and doing not saying that Billy made.
I wanted out of there. I wanted to go be a commanding officer. I wanted out. Like, I just couldn't get out of IAB. Like, that was the only way I could get out. Is I needed someone to pull for me. My old FIO was there. He goes, I could get you out. I could get a deputy commissioner to get you out. I said, please get me out.
Listen, I know the feeling. I was a rock star on the job also. They didn't even call me Lieutenant Dim. They used to call me Captain America. Even when they would give me awards, they would say Captain America. But when my time was up and they were finished with me, I was no longer their whore. You know, I was fed to the wolves to Civilian Complaint Review Board. I was the alpha white male. I was the perfect target. White male, blonde hair, blue eyes, working the South Bronx. Let's get rid of him. Here's your racist target. You know, they painted me as a racist. Meanwhile, 99% of the neighborhood was black. The only white guys was me and the guy next to me and a fireman close by. That was about it. So the job, it's no surprise, John. The job treats us like prostitutes. And, you know, when you're no longer useful to them, they get rid of you and send you to another pimp. And that's really it.
Yep. All right, let's get to the super chats. We got 10 minutes left. Real quick before we get to the super chats, the new target of Streets blog is blocker cars. I just want you guys to know that they cause traffic violence. So when you're out there in a blocker car, you're that evil man or woman sitting in that blocker car to prevent an act of terrorism, a ramming attack against all these individuals. Streets blog is actually out there writing articles about you, saying what street violence that you're involved in as you're willing to lay down your life for others. Yeah, so they're doing real great. Streets blog's doing real great work, you know. So just wanted to throw that out there. I read an article. I was hysterical laughing this morning when I was making my coffee. I was like, this is amazing.
Hey, I just want to say, Hunter, it's blonde hair, brother. Whatever's left of it.
Yeah. Hunter. So yeah, blocker cars are evil, people. In case you're in it, you got to know you're the new target. You're the new Streets blog. They moved off Gio Vincente and now it's blocker cars. The Streets blog supports ramming attacks. Get it. Got it. It's told to you back when, he says. It's an ideology of pirates jumping from ship to ship. That's what's happening, dude. They're taking all the spoils with them. We're entitled to all our spoils now. That's it. We're entitled to all the cash for ass programs. We're entitled to all the unearned promotions. We're entitled to all the cover-up of corruption. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's a pirate's life for me. Ho, ho. You know, Crazy 10-7, he says, people like Faizan and others use racial intimidation and color to get where they are their entire careers. When they get called out, they fumble and call racism to their deficiencies. Again, I think in this world today, especially in New York City, it's perfectly acceptable. And I think white people have also took this bait, hook, line, and sinker. I think it's perfectly acceptable to discriminate against majority groups in New York City, and it's looked at as perfectly acceptable and perfectly legal, even though it's not. It's completely illegal. The Bill of Rights, our Constitution, protects against discrimination of the majority, but there is that whole DEI thing where they say, no, you're in the position of power. It's perfectly okay to discriminate against you. It's perfectly okay to be racist against you. And black people actually can't be racist because they're in a minority group and they have no power, which I don't know. I think when you're a chief and I'm a lieutenant, I think it's pretty stupid to say you have no power.
I think so. All groups discriminate. It's absolutely the most ridiculous thing. And what do they mean? Like, I love how they lump this whole thing into like the white guy, who is the white guy? I mean, I'm white, but I grew up with plenty of discrimination. There was plenty of young kids when I grew up who had a complete bias and disdain and anti-Semitism for Jews when they found that I was Jewish. Their faces would change and say, oh, people would say things like, oh, you don't look Jewish, or I can't hang out with you because you're Jewish, or stupid shit like that. Or someone called me a Jew fuck when I was like 9, 10 years old. Like, where do you learn that from? I mean, I beat the shit out of the kid, but where do you learn that from? That's taught by. So it's the most like who is the white guy? Just want to know, John. You're Italian. You face discrimination. Who's the white guy?
That's not anti-Semitic. I call all my Jewish friends, you Jew fuck.
Who is the? Are we white? Like, who's the white guy?
Yeah.
Second.
I want to know.
Yeah. Well, about this again. I love how it's always collectivism when you're criticizing them. It's like, how could you criticize us? It's been so hard for us to get to this point. And yet that collectivism goes out the window when you need help from any of these groups. It's like when you get thrown to the wolves, it's like you're no longer, nothing we can do for you. Yeah. But when you criticize them, it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? It's so hard for us. How could you criticize? How could you join that? So it's all BS, Yeah.
It's told to you so back when says, let's be real. How was she a chief? Insane. I don't know who you're talking about, but I can correlate that statement with a lot.
I think she's talking about Juanita Holmes.
Say he too. How was he a chief, or how was he a deputy commissioner, or how was he in charge of anything? That's kind of a catch-all today, I think, for everyone in leadership in the NYPD. How was he or she a chief? Like so I don't know specifically who you're talking about, but I think it applies.
John, I put my money. I'm pretty sure. I told you so back when. Thank you, by the way, for coffee donuts. I'm pretty sure that was when you were speaking about Juanita Holmes. I would put my last dollar. If I told you so back when, if you're watching, let us know. But I'm pretty sure Juanita Holmes.
Maybe it was early on. I think Marlon brought her up. I'm not sure. Yeah.
He's blaming you, Marlon.
Well, yeah.
Well, I didn't talk about it. I don't know. I don't care. I'll say it about her too. Yeah. I don't see anything great about her, and I think that the corporate world didn't see anything great about her either. I thank God for civil service, right? Like I always say that. I always say that.
True.
It's the corporate world loved her in 2020, and they love everybody in 2020 because they all went woke in 2020, right?
Well, they loved her for 11 months, until she screwed up there too, and she showed them how incompetent she was.
Yeah.
So until they said, "Hey, chief, you need to do A, B, and C." Like, wait a minute, I have to do this myself. Time to leave.
What I'm going to do? I'm going to become the police commissioner of another. I'm going to become the commissioner of another agency, and just keep tacking on to my police pension.
Yeah, I'm going to get another pension. I want to know how that works out. I would like to get the fruits of that tree too. I want to get another pension.
It's told you back when says it's Jersey Shore, John. Yeah, it's it, baby. It's summertime. August is my month, bro. All right, that's it.
I think Pat Donahue was a little turned on. He had a comment earlier about your muscular shirt.
I didn't say that.
Was getting a little man crush.
This is my. That's not Willie Nelson. This is what the hell am I losing? The guy that wrote Dukes of Hazzard, Waylon Jennings.
Is Monday going to be Arms Day? Are we going to go
Waylon Jennings, baby. Ladies love outlaws.
John, is Monday going to be Arms Day? We're going to go with sleeve sleeves on Mondays.
I think I should start bringing it back for the summer. Two a week Arms days. I think for August, 2 a week Arms days. I think for August I'll do arms twice a week and not work out legs so that my arms look bigger.
Isn't that the Italian figure?
That's what I used to do. That was the old. That was how you do it. And then you got an extra medium shirt and you're good to go. Hand up to Ball. What do you keep doing with these?
Marlon just keeps messing around, man. What are you doing, man? Marlon, you're gonna have to pay some coffee and donuts for fixing this shit.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of shit. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of horrific crimes. I think the crime numbers will probably go back into on Wednesday because we haven't touched on that at all. Reza Chowdhury's been absolutely destroying the NYPD and their whole crimes down, and we had historic lows. And yeah, I think we should talk about maybe we should title it like around making history. We didn't just break records, we shattered them. You know, there was one thing that he put out about, I think it was about the 108 or the 109. And again, I'm shooting off the top of my head. We'll talk about it more on Wednesday, but I think he said that there was like 687 crimes in 2019 in that precinct, and they're already over that 6 months into the year. But yet somehow violent major crimes, right? They had 680 something of them in 2019 in one precinct. They're already over that in July. So I think, you know, when you sit there and people telling you, yeah, we're making history, we're at record lows, like, yeah, you ain't nowhere near record low. You're working on doubling.
They sure made history for the most corrupted administration. They sure made history for the most woke administration. Sure made history for the most chiefs taking a knee, or, you know, figuratively and literally. That, I'll say, yeah, they did make history. Oh, and also for Cash for Ass program, they made history for that. Giving out free overtime, they made history for that too. A lot of history.
Hey, do we have time for like a minute? Because I think this is.
Do you believe him, Eric? Do you believe that's a minute?
No, he's gonna do some housekeeping.
No, this is funny. Trust me.
Go ahead. Yeah, go.
It's hilarious. You gotta watch this, right?
Speaking of that, what does the chief of patrol of the New York City Police Department actually do?
A lot. So it's, you know, naturally it speaks for itself. You have a lot of men and women working for you. And I just think the biggest part of my day, naturally everybody wants reduction in crime, right? We want a safe community. I want people to get home safe at night. I don't want cops having to be involved in any adversity that they don't have to be involved in. So I think I'm always thinking about, how do we get better? Who do we bring in to help us with our mission? And our mission is to keep people safe. And I always think community. Community is a big part of it. When we started looking at reform and...
Yeah, okay. Okay,
Marlon, can you start that over again? Chief, what exactly do you do?
Yeah. Woke NYPD Chiefs.
Listen, Jamie... Holmes is charming. Listen, Chief Holmes is a nice lady, but questionable judgment. Okay, very questionable judgment. And you could be a nice lady, but maybe you shouldn't be chief of patrol. If you can't answer that question, I don't think you should be there. Okay.
That was great. So I'm still confused by that. What exactly do you do, Chief? He's probably sitting like, wait, what? What do you
do? Walk us through your day, Chief. Walk us through it.
Well, it starts out with a cup of coffee, and then I ask someone to put the cream in my coffee. And then when it gets cold, I ask someone to heat it up. That's probably what happened.
I will say she's a good-looking chief, though, right? Like, there's not a lot of good-looking chiefs. I think Juanita Holmes good-looking. Like, I don't think, you know. So I'll give a shout out to her for that. You know. Yeah. If you compare to guys like Corey, Marjorie, Caban, I mean, like, come on, these people.
You think she's better looking than Marjorie? I think so.
Nah. Now, Janice is smoke show.
Look, we're not comparing the Holmes sisters here.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. Yeah. I'm saying, as a chief, Janice is a very good-looking girl as well.
I'll give it to her. She was a runner. She stayed in shape. So I'm sure Juanita Holmes, when she went out for runs, she was thinking about what a chief does. Let me get coffee today, get back, see what else, let's see what other bullshit I can do. That's definitely what happened. At least she went to American Express. They probably told her you have to do things, and it's like, wait a minute, I can go back to the NYPD, get another pension, and not do anything. Yeah, I'm going to go back.
Yeah, so I think we summed it up. So you're all a bunch of woke bitches. So
yeah, you know what? Hey, listen, we got the picture here with the Punisher, but might as well just have a chief here with a ball gag in their mouth. It's the same thing. Ball gags for woke chiefs. Show me a chief that's not woke, because if you're not woke, you're not making it. You're not going through those ranks, right?
So yeah, you know why I came up with this? I watched. I was on the Disney Channel. Somebody told me to watch it. It was Punisher, One Last Kill. And I was like, look, shit's kind of changing a little bit in society, because they canceled that show that they did. I forget the actor, but he's a pretty good actor. He's in a lot of different things.
John Bernthal.
Yeah. So, but that was a violent. That actually I was supposed to go play basketball yesterday morning. I put that on and I was like mesmerized. I forgot I was supposed to go play basketball. I never went. They're like, where the hell are you? I was like, oh shit, I forgot, but
You're gonna go play basketball with that cutoff sleeve shirt?
it's just like, this is like law enforcement. It's supposed to be a masculine profession. It's supposed to be like, yeah, look, we're out here. We're going to protect you. We're going to lay down our lives. And these guys are like, it's not police that keep you safe. It's the community, It's like, all right, bro.
John, were you wearing that shirt when you were playing basketball, or you go shirtless?
I never went, bro. I never went. I went right up on a ladder. I was on a ladder all day. One of my gutters fell. I was trying to put it back up. It looks horrendous. And so I think I'm going to have to just call a roofer because I obviously suck at doing gutters.
John, when you play ball and you do shirts and skins, you try to get on skins?
Oh, yeah, always, bro. Yeah, you got to get the tan, bro. It's the best way. Yeah. Look, keep my wife knowing, she gotta watch out.
Oh shit.
Keep her on her toes,
Honey, I'm coming home all sweaty.
Eddie West says that he's in the new Spider-Man movie. Great movie. Definitely recommend you guys go watch it. Yeah, I wanna take my kids to the 4DX one. Did you see those new 4DX theaters? They're wild, dude. Yeah. You like sit in the theater. There's one right by me. You sit in the theater, but not only does it shake, they like throw water on you. Smoke comes out, like all this crazy stuff. So I know Marlon was saying that the movie industry is dying a little bit, but there are some decent movies coming out. Like I know there's some woke takes on them, especially with the Odyssey. But I think Spider-Man's going to be one of those big movies. I don't know that it breaks that Rotten Tomatoes score 90, but if it does, I mean that's a pretty good trade. So and if you want to do it, hit up over here, Kalshi. Spend $25, get a bonus of up to $500. You know
what's cool? I did one of those 4DX. I did one of those 4DX movies once. And not only do they shoot water, but when they shoot like air at you, but it like hits you hard. You know what I'm talking about, John? He's sitting there and like it just shoots out air. It's like, psh. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's almost like a ride.
Yeah. They actually, by the way, did want to cancel the Punisher in all of media because that logo, they hate that cops used to use that logo. They think it's too masculine. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know. I heard mixed things about the movie. I need to read more reviews before I go drop my money on Marvel owes me a lot of money for all the slop superhero films I had to sit through in the last couple of years. So
yeah, but the Punisher, I don't know if you got the Disney Channel, Marlon, but the Punisher,
no, I saw it.
Last Kill, awesome.
I saw it. Yeah, I
awesome.
saw it was decent.
But they put a new one out. You saw the new thing?
Yeah. I saw the new one.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then I started watching the old series, thinking it was new, and then I got to like the third episode, and I'm like, wait a minute, I think I saw this a long time ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if Mikey iShare is joking, but this is pretty funny. He said Elliot Page did an interview on masculinity. That's pretty funny. I wonder if she did.
Yeah.
Especially after doing the Odyssey.
I still didn't go see the Odyssey. I want to go see it. I was supposed to go see it in 4DX. And it's been sold out like crazy. It remains sold out by me. I don't know. I guess these people will go to the movies. I literally don't go to the movies. It was like the end of the summer. My kids are already going back to school. I'm not traveling anymore. So I was like, yeah, let me take them to the movie. I just haven't got a chance to go. I did take them to see, even though they're older, because we were just bored one day and it was downpouring here the day my gutter fell. And I took them to see Toy Story 5, and I thought that was a cool movie. I thought that was pretty cool because it was the toys versus the tablets and the phones. So I thought it was a good message for the kids to go out there and socialize. And I actually enjoyed it. I was like, yeah, this is a cool movie.
I used to love to do when my kids would run me around all day and be exhausted. I used to love and look forward to taking to a kids movie because I knew I was going to get a 2-hour nap. That was I couldn't wait. I take them to a dining theater, give them food, watch the movie. I know, all right, put my seat back, and I got 2 hours to take a nap. That's why I like kid movies.
No, yeah, the new movies are wild, dude. I mean, like the new theaters are wild, like compared to when we were kids, you're like, your back's killing you and those uncomfortable chairs. You're like, get the hell out of here. So yeah, but I definitely am gonna watch Odyssey. I don't care about. I know all the criticisms on it. I still want to see it. Like I just It's a time old story, and then I'll talk shit about it if I see it.
I'm gonna see it, but I feel like Marlon tainted my mind now. I'm gonna watch this, but like I already have I'm already waiting. I'm already waiting to shit on the movie. So, but I'm gonna watch it anyway. I'm looking forward to, this is woke, that's woke, but I'll give it a shot.
I think you get upset the minute there's too much changes in that movie. When Travis, what's his name, that rapper shows up in the movie,
Travis Scott,
as the bard, that's when you throw all of any sort of adherence to the lore out the window. So I don't know about that.
Well, look, I like 300 though, and I think like they tried to make it kind of historically accurate.
No,
but, I mean,
it was.
But they didn't
was
sound like
Greeks.
You know what I mean? Like Leonidas sounded like an Australian guy. Like, you know what I mean? It didn't sound like a Greek guy. You know what I mean? They didn't have like, you know what I mean? And like, you got to think about it. Like you got to like kind of do what you could do. I don't know. Like I took my kids to see The Outsiders on Broadway, and they mixed in like it was a diverse cast. Like they had a black guy, Puerto Rican guy. They even had a black girl as like one of the greasers, and that was like the only thing they did. And I was like, you know what? I'm not really gonna shit on it. Like it was still a good play. I thought it was really well done. They didn't change anything other than the guy that ran and did the suicide by cop. They said that he got killed by a train. They didn't show it or anything. But other than that, they like kind of stuck to the storyline. So I don't really care if you change the characters. Like it doesn't bother me too much. I think it gets ridiculous when you have like Little Orphan Annie and you're making her a black girl, or you're making Little Mermaid a black girl, you make Snow White a black girl. I think it gets stupid, but it doesn't mean that it's a horrible movie either. And there's so much propaganda that's been out in the movies for years. I mean, dude, everybody loved the pretending that where they fly on the birds, they fly on the dragons. What the hell is that movie? They have a ride for it in Disney where
Train Your Dragon? How to Train Your Dragon?
No. It was it's like set in this world, and they're like aliens. They're guys, they go into like VR. Avatar. I mean, and that was the most that was the most anti-American movie I ever watched in my life. I was like, oh my God. Like they're making us like we rape and pillage. We rape and pillage the Indians. We're rape and pillaging the Middle East. What do we have to offer these people? Blue jeans and beer. And I was disgusted by it. I was like, I heard all these great things about the movie, and I'm sitting there and I'm going, wow, this is some real anti-American bullshit, and most people didn't grab it and they loved it. And I'm like, at the end of the day, I was like, you know what? Still a movie. It is what it is. I don't have to say that it's great. I personally think Avatar is anti-American trash, but I'll sit down and watch it and I'll point out all the reasons why it was anti-American trash. You know what I mean? And then that's it. You know?
I got
it's anti-Western. It's anti-Western. It's the noble savages, It's dance. I like to call it Dances with Blue Aliens because it's really Dances with Wolves retold again,
I got a problem with these movies because I think it's almost like they're trying to change history. So if you watch one of these movies with your kids and you want to educate your kids, they're getting a different version of what history is. So I don't like it. I got a problem with it. I don't like it. It's these are supposed to be interpretation. Like the Odyssey is supposed to be an interpretation of a long told story, and you're giving the kids a complete different version. So I don't like it. It's a work version, whatever it was. But if it was a work version back then, fine. But that's not what the case is. They want to rewrite history. So I think there's a lot more. We talk about conspiracy theories. I know me and Marlon probably don't go down a rabbit hole with this one, but I really do think they're trying to brainwash people's minds and make them think different about history also. I think it goes beyond just a movie.
Look how many new movies are kind of encouraging like some sort of revolution. Well, watch for that theme coming out in a lot of these newer movies,
Yeah.
And Frank 300 was based off of this graphic novel by Frank Miller. So that's why it wasn't meant to be accurate. That's why that like even the art style was copied by the movie.
Yep.
But
copied by the graphic novel. But still, it was a historical. I still like I'm writing this book and I still go back and forth with that. Should I make it like a graphic novel or should I make it an actual novel? And like, but like it doesn't matter. Like you're gonna grab, like there's gonna be some artistic stretches if it's a graphic novel, as opposed to if it's an actual just biography, and like, so like there's a lot of stuff there. But overall, I mean, they're talking about a legit historical period in time. You know what I mean? And like I said, I read the Odyssey after not reading it in high school, and then I read like a dumbed down version. I want to say dumbed down version, but I read a different version of it for kids, and so like I read it to my kids, and that was a good version of it too. It was just a different. It wasn't necessarily the story. You know what I mean?
I gotta laugh. Jamie Reagan. Yeah, I wouldn't say that the Odyssey or Troy or Achilles or any of that is fiction. It's Greek mythology. So it's, which I said, it's an old story. We learn about old stories which have captivated history. So I do think it's kind of changing history. It's not, I wouldn't say it's fiction. It's more of it's an old tale. It's Greek mythology. And I don't think Greek mythology is.
I don't think they're fiction at all.
At all.
I think they're historically accurate. I think those are.
It comes from some story, right?
Like I was talking to my sister-in-law the other day, and I was telling her, I was like, when I was a kid, I used to think that everything in the Bible was like figurative, not literal. I used to think they were trying to get to a story. I was like, and now I'm going to be 46. I was like, and I think that every single thing in there is legit. I was like, it's the craziest thing. I think that every single thing in there is legit. I was like, it's wild. And the same thing's true with a lot of these stories. I think that, first of all, we know that there was an Alexander. So, I mean, there you go. Like right then and there, like it's whether all the little details are accurate around those stories. Maybe we could argue that, but whatever.
Jamie Reagan's funny. He says, isn't it fiction? I definitely think not. I think Greek mythology comes from somewhere. I think a lot of the, it's not documented in the sense of the Bible, but I think a lot of the mythology has a lot of historical basis. I sure do.
Yeah. So, all right, people. So let's get out of here. We went over.
Yeah.
All right. So anything before we run?
Yeah. No, I just want to say thank you to everyone. 3 hours and 15 minutes. Like, share, and subscribe. For our friends and listeners, thank you so much for the engagement. We really appreciate it, especially to those that are with us, on a weekly basis. We really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us. This is a great episode. If you're new to the channel, like, share, and subscribe. Please put your comments on YouTube. If they're on Instagram, as John always says, we can't see them. So we want to see your comments. We want to engage you. This episode, Woke NYPD Chiefs. I think it was very important. I think we got a lot of trolls today, as expected. A lot of people don't like this conversation because it's the truth. So with that being said, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Marlon. Thank you, John. And hey, have a great day, and we'll see you on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Find something, baby.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, guys. Have a good day and stay safe. And if this conversation had you upset, then trust me, you'll have a happier, healthier career if you stop being a victim and you go out there and become a good cop. Okay? You're not a victim. You are not a victim. Have a great day.
Grand Rising.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?